Chapter 31. The hawk's vision was limited, making it impossible to understand the whole story. However, as far as Sylvia saw, the knight tried to assassinate Deucalion first, which forced him to retaliate in self-defense, causing the knight to fall down the cliff and, ultimately, to his death. No, Deucalion definitely tried to save the knight, which meant he died of his own accord. Through her magic, Sylvia witnessed the scene unfold almost as if she was right in front of it. Even the conversations they held were transferred directly into her ears. With her eyes closed, she found Deucalion standing alone on an overhanging cliff. The fact that he didn't fall was indeed a miracle, but the conference was about to start in 6 hours. She thought he'd need another miracle for him to reach Berkt in time. Deucalion looked up at the sky, seemingly directly at the hawk, which surprised her so much she ordered it to return. It would be impossible to observe further if the blizzard got worse anyway. It might also hurt the hawk, an occurrence she wanted to avoid the most. It was her very first creation, which made her want to keep it with her for a long time. If the mana in its mana stone ran out, she decided she would recharge it instead of replacing it. Come back. Sylvia opened her eyes after issuing the command, returning her vision to Berkt's landscape. "Oh, Miss Sylvia?" Who, as she sighed and turned around, she found herself face to face with the people from the kingdom that Sirio talked about. "So this is where you were, Tilda. I've been looking forward to meeting you, Tilda. It's a real honor to see you in person, Rookie of the Year. Greetings. I'm from the Judra family of the Riak Kingdom." Sylvia felt burdened by their weird responses. At the express train railway, the platform employee saluted a high-ranking official. "It's an honor, Deputy Director of Imperium's Public Safety Bureau, Lilia Primian." Coincidentally, she was camping in the northern mountain range when she heard about the train incident and was immediately dispatched to the site as the Deputy Director of Security. A surprise attack was launched, and an explosion occurred. Yes, it's a common occurrence in the process of traveling to Berkt. The reward is even 10 times bigger for assassinations that occur inside Berkt. This is nothing special. The employee who appeared to be in charge replied. Primian glanced below the cliff. "What about the casualties?" "None has been confirmed yet, but Professor Deucalion and the knight, Veron, are currently missing. He has a more detailed eyewitness account." Primian looked in the direction the staff was pointing at, finding a man with a blonde mustache and Alan, who looked like he was sleeping on the track. "Yes, the wizard and the knight saved me, but when I came to my senses, the whole train had already fallen. Maybe the knights launched a secondary attack." The mustached man was talking to someone else when Primian approached him, who then pointed at the camera hanging from the man's neck. "Is it okay if I take a look at it?" "What? Yes, but this is my source of income. I'll give it back to you immediately." "Oh, okay." The man developed the film of the camera in an instant. Looking at some of it, Primian grew momentarily speechless. "Huh," she smirked. The magic film contained 1 to 2 seconds before and after the picture was taken, like a video. In the photo, the train was floating midair. She deduced the initiator to be Deucalion, considering even she knew the identity of that magic, psychokinesis. He suspended the train using it, and very nonchalantly at that. He could even be seen reading a book. He was so relaxed he seemed like he was just holding up a pencil. Primian, who was looking at the photos, soon received something from someone from somewhere. A mana signal poked her in the back, causing her to stand still and interpret it. "Knight Veron is dead. He tried to kill Deucalion, but it seems like it was an order. The head professor survived." Primian let out a small sigh. She knew Veron. They were from the same clan, after all, the Red Box. Even though he had a lot of screws missing, he was an admirable man. His death made her feel bitter, but she felt relieved at the same time. He was a ticking time bomb like Rockhark. She was certain he would definitely cause trouble one day. "Do you think of the photos? I know I'm the one who took it, but even I can't help but admit it was an amazing sight. I'm a magical analyst, but I would never dare assess Professor Deucalion's caliber." "That's enough." Primian returned the pictures to him. Oh, it's a ghost." An employee screamed, causing her to look in his direction. She immediately determined the newly found figure's identity, even though he had just arrived at the track. Head Professor de Killeen. No one saw him come up. One moment, he was nowhere to be found. The next, he was standing within their vicinity alone. Without saying a word, he looked down at the cliff he had climbed while thinking about his limits. His psychokinesis could kill anyone, but it couldn't get through a knight's fortitude. Additionally, without mana, he was rendered powerless. His magic couldn't overcome a master born with talent and intense concentration. He felt a distinct wall blocking his path. A sense of dejection rose. If not for that unidentified help, it would have been him who would have been slammed below this cliff. Head Professor. Primian approached him. Your assistant professor is over there. He's safe. De Killeen saw Alan on the track. Will that be all? Yes. He paused for a moment before replying. What time is it? It's 3:30, Primian answered as she had an unnecessary thought. She found his face fucking handsome. 6 hours left. He weighed the probability of him attending the conference on time, which was beginning to seem impossible. For him to climb the cliff without the train with his low stamina, it would take at least a day. I'm sorry, but I need to ask this out of formality, Head Professor. What happened to the escort you were with? He died. Was it because of the attack? He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I see. Professor, by any chance, can you straighten this track? De Killeen tilted his head at her words and looked down on Primian, emitting arrogance unique to nobles. It was as if he was looking at someone inferior. She felt anger surging inside her for a moment, but she forcefully soothed it. If you can fix it, I'll call the train over with my authority. If he could fix the tracks before the blizzard got worse, she would be able to call the train on standby to resume its activities, increasing his chance of reaching Berkt before the conference. It'll be beneficial for you, Professor, so why are you looking at me with those eyes? You're making me want to pull them out. It'll be much better and faster than walking. I refuse. Primian shut her mouth and rolled her tongue. I was born with the natural talent to irritate people, huh? Move. The real reason behind his decision, however, was his exhaustion. He didn't have any remaining energy left to spare on magic. She misunderstood the situation since he looked perfect externally, not realizing that internally he was lethargic. Okay. Primian lightly bowed her head, then moved away from de Killeen and grabbed an employee. Since you're not doing anything, clear the tracks before it gets snowed over even more. Yes, of course. One more thing. Is this the only train that goes to Berkt? No, it's a bit far, but there's a land route and a sea route on the other side of the mountain. Primian felt something strange as she spoke with the employee, causing her to look back. But there was no one there. De Killeen had already disappeared. Was it acceleration? He probably thought it would be faster to run up the cliff while using support magic than clear the tracks. The wind was indeed intense in this area, and it wasn't impossible to borrow the strength of the elements. How much mana does that guy even have? His abilities exceeded imagination. He was even stronger than the reports made him out to be, considering he stopped the train from getting derailed using psychokinesis, drove back dozens upon dozens of knights, defeated Veron, safely climbed the cliff, and still had enough mana to spare to cast acceleration, an advanced magic. On himself, was his mana capacity the size of an ocean? Primian clicked her tongue. Jung, the assistant professor grunted, finally waking up. Primian approached him and asked him as he looked around blankly. What's your name? What? Oh, me, ooh. Your professor is gone. Unable to answer, Alan's tears swelled up. Primian frowned. He didn't go to the afterlife. He's just gone ahead to the Berkt conference. So your name? Oh yes, phew, I'm Alan. Primian spelled his name skillfully, then showed him her writing. Did I get the spelling right? Alan nodded. Yes. Your age? I'm 24 years old. You'll have to excuse me. I'm his assistant. I need to follow him right away. You're already late anyway. Just wait for the next train. Asterisk, the current time was 9:30 p.m. The Berkt conference would start at 9:53, which the elders considered as the time when stars aligned. That gave everyone 23 minutes left before they were considered late. Sylvia walked down the street of Berkt's 4th district. Its roads were as complicated as the rumors described. The passageway was divided into two. Glython and the other family heads traveled using the right pass, and the assistants traveled using the left. Sylvia, how's life at the university tower? We should try to have a meeting of our own. That, too, should be a good experience. The nobles walking with her frequently spoke to her. She answered roughly. Sure. Just as bright lights attracted moths, she attracted others to her side. Everyone was behaving so annoyingly around her simply because she had great talent as a wizard. All right, the head of the Eucline family hasn't arrived yet. Sylvia's ears perked up. It was Penhavillion, the assistant of the Magic Kingdom. No way if Eucline gets eliminated, that'll be a huge affair. A huge affair? I have foreseen this to some extent. The current head's abilities are lacking compared to his predecessors, and he stopped gathering achievements 3 years ago. There's even a rumor that his talent is nothing special. Jairon spoke this time, the assistant of the Rewaned family from the Empire. Sylvia wanted to voice out her thoughts, but she didn't say anything. Mediocre people would always be jealous of geniuses, and it showed. Meanwhile, geniuses would always recognize geniuses. D'Killian's talent was only lacking compared to her. Commoners like them shouldn't disregard his capabilities. Oh, that's it. They had finally reached the front of the gate of the Elders' Hall, a majestic shrine. It was built on the top of a mountain that had its peak completely cut off, almost as if an ancient giant stayed there. Kriak. The door opened as they approached, almost as if it had been waiting for them. Nervous, the 19 assistants entered respectively. A spacious conference room greeted them. It was so huge that 40 people wouldn't be enough to fill the place. Even 400 people could comfortably gather here and attend the meeting. Around the vast round table, the 19 family heads were already seated. There was only a single vacant seat, Eucline's. Sylvia stood next to Glython, who smiled when he saw her. The other assistants who were bothering her also stood beside their respective family seats. Dung, 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 dung. 5 tremors announced the time. 9:50 p.m., 3 minutes left. Sylvia felt somewhat bitter. As expected, it didn't work. He couldn't reach the summit in time. Before we begin the conference, abruptly, a loud voice shook the room. The person's condensed mana and his resonant echo made Sylvia's heart throb. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all of you who have responded to our summons. The top brass, D'Zecton. He was the candidate most likely to become the great wizard and a legend that had chosen to leave the secular world. He was sitting in the position of the great elder, the only power that existed independently on the round table, the seats of which were veiled by darkness. D'Zecton couldn't see the families on the round table, and the heads of the family couldn't see him. Sylvia felt great pressure looking at him. Will I be able to challenge someone like him once I reach that kind of level? It was worth trying. I'll start the roll call. D'Zecton's voice echoed inside. Like the majestic sound of war drums and thunder, it spread electricity all over her body. Glython of Iliade. I, Glython, head of the Iliade family, honorably responds to Berkt's summon, Glython said with ease, making Sylvia proud of her father's spirit. Baton of Bayorad. I, Baton, 6th head of the Bayorad family, bows to the great elder. D'Zecton called several families, Judra, Rewaned, Villian, and others, and they all formally responded to his call with their family's personal flares. At some point, however, D'Killian of Eucline. When D'Zecton called his name, the Elders' Hall fell into silence. Is D'Killian not here yet? D'Zecton said in the dark. Everyone swallowed without answering. An unknown tension was rising from underneath their consciousness, Eucline's elimination. It was clearly unexpected, but on the other hand, it was something they looked forward to. The other families had always thought of it, but due to his reputation as a wizard, they couldn't put their audacious thoughts into action. D'Killian's downfall was what almost everyone gathered here wanted. Eucline's head, D'Killian, doesn't seem to have arrived yet. If he hasn't arrived after the 3rd roll call, his absence will be considered non-compliance to the summon. D'Zecton's solemn dignity seemed to weigh down the round table. Ihelm, the head of the Rewaned family, smiled in secret. He was once D'Killian's close friend, but they were nothing more than opponents now. As a consequence, the Eucline family will be eliminated from the 12 traditional wizard families. His magical voice sounded merciless, making the round table tremble. Sylvia looked at the huge clock attached to the ceiling of the Elders' Hall. 53 minutes had already passed. Killeen of Eucline. Since Burke's inauguration, Eucline had never been removed from the 12 families. Hence, if he failed to answer the summons after his name had been called thrice, his household would be eliminated from the conference after 200 years. Few mistakes could bring as much shame as that to a noble family. Killeen of Eucline. Sylvia looked around. Some held back their smiles and some smiled openly. Her father was expressionless. Not one of them looked worried. In Sylvia's opinion, that was enough proof to think Killeen had lived his life improperly. She felt sorry for him. Killeen. The moment when the third call was about to be made, screech, the sound of stone being scraped roughly echoed. Surprised, Sylvia looked towards the entrance. The main door of the conference room opened slightly, and a blizzard poured through the cracks. Dezekton stopped. Everyone's gaze turned to the entrance, and with his body covered with snow, he entered, almost as if making a grand entrance. His suit was tattered and ruined, and his hair was disheveled. He looked like a monster who came back alive from hell. The unpolished image he displayed completely differed from his usual neat figure. Sylvia clenched her fist unknowingly. He definitely didn't look magnificent, but his aura was still impressive. No one dared to say anything as they stared at him. Killeen, is that you? Dezekton asked. Killeen looked around in silence, then his blue eyes fell and stared at the round table. The smiles of those delighted by his absence were swiftly erased from their faces, and those who hoped for his elimination avoided his gaze. Killeen, I demand an answer. Dezekton spoke again. It was late, but Killeen tidied up his clothes. He fixed his ruined suit and neatly swept back his snow-soaked hair. Just like that, he returned to his usual mien with ease. Yes, he said. It's me, Killeen. As he stated his name, he strode into the conference room. His arrogance remained in his steps, his pride seemingly swallowing the entire hall. Von Grahan Eucline. The gazes on the round table followed him. Only Glython laughed quietly with his head down. The head of Eucline has arrived. He didn't bow. No, he didn't even answer the call. He just arrived, an extremely arrogant flair befitting his existence. Some of the heads creased their lips or clicked their tongues in discontent, while some immature assistants had their jaws open unconsciously as if his appearance and ego bewitched them. I apologize for not arriving on time. It took me a while to pull myself together from the incident. You're not late. Have a seat. He walked and sat in his rightful seat, reserved for his family. The moment he did, Sylvia marveled at the sight. The round table certainly didn't have a hierarchy in their seats. However, from the moment he appeared, it was as if all the weight was leaning onto him. But, since your assistant hasn't arrived yet, your right to speak will be limited to 3 times from the halfway point until the adjournment. He looked at someone who couldn't make eye contact with him, his eyes filled with vivid anger as if looking at the cause of the recent incident. I acknowledge it. Killeen slanted his head. He couldn't even afford to say anything. His mana had already been drained, and this crazy scuttle had consumed his already exhausted energy even more. He had far exceeded Iron Man-esque limitations. The only reason he could maintain his senses now was his unique personality. Calm down, Killeen. Everyone in the conference room furiously misunderstood the heavy atmosphere. Even Ihelm, who always made provoking remarks every time they met, quietly fixed his posture. Still, the best wizard on the continent was Eucline. Regardless of what the high society had to say about him, there was no doubt that he stood at the top. Since everyone from the 12 traditional families and 8 new families has arrived, we will now begin the Burked Conference. The meeting began in that silence. Chapter 32. The first agenda of the Burked Conference was the appearance of demons, one of which I killed at the Mountain of Darkness. To start with, Dezekton demanded my testimony. The Mountain of Darkness is an area that has always been underpurified. There's always been more than enough monsters there, but I didn't expect to kill a demon that day. I caught my breath after my testimony. Essasil, The young head of the Brand family added to my vague explanation. That means this has become more serious and much larger than the frequent appearances of the demons in the system. Not only that, the North is swarming with them. Command each school or cooperate with the church. Wizards need to be dispatched to the suspected area. She was a named character with mysterious green hair and a trustworthy head of a family with high convictions. Now that I didn't have the power to interpret, judge, reiterate, or refute others' words verbally, I decided to agree with the messenger to close off my statement. That is correct. Cecil's eyes widened in surprise. Well, Killeen was the type to point things out, even if it was right. The other wizards didn't necessarily criticize this item on the agenda. First of all, if the church selects a suspected area, wizards can then be chosen and dispatched from each magic school. They had passed through the first item. The Linnell School, known for their destructive magic, has shown great enthusiasm in exacting the demon's punishment. But there was still quite a lot to discuss on the agenda, such as which schools would be dispatched, what countermeasures to apply on the areas where the demons frequently appeared, what revisions had to be done on the dungeon and demon hunting laws, and more. For almost 4 hours, the round table discussed important matters without end. During that time, I kept my silence, reserving my right to speak 3 times. We will adjourn for now to take a short break. In just 5 hours, I was able to get off the round table. I went outside to gather my senses, finding a petite man with brown hair stamping his feet near the exit. Alan. "Ah, Professor," Alan shouted and came running. "Are you all right? I'm sorry I'm late." Joining the conference while it's already ongoing is against the law, so I was left with no other option but to wait. "I'm sorry." I shook my head as he became flustered. "It's okay." It wasn't, though. I didn't know how many times I experienced mana exhaustion today. An ordinary wizard would have been down with a fever or died already. I could still feel some of its side effects, and I had only recovered 300 mana during the 5-hour conference. Professor, I heard that you saved." "I told you not to cry." Alan bowed his head to prevent tears from falling. Cuck, at that moment I noticed something that made me unable to look at this kid innocently anymore. There was a factor about him that seemed rather unfamiliar. From now on, just stand still next to me. "What?" "Oh, yes, but I couldn't disclose it here." If my thought was right, then I had to keep this kid close. I shouldn't show my emotions. If I wanted to live. We were given a 30-minute break. The heads returned to their respective waiting rooms, exchanging opinions and making deals as needed, but I just stayed with Alan. I didn't do anything else. Just like that, the break ended, and I came back to the round table and returned to my seat. Alan stood beside me. "What is the wizard's stance regarding the red box?" Zekton opened the next item on the agenda. At that moment, the atmosphere of the Elders' Hall suddenly changed. No one had designated a right to speak, but a debate came up right from the start, one fierce enough to say that the red box was the wizard's Achilles' heel. The red box is like a bunch of cockroaches. They lay eggs and constantly reproduce and eat away at society. Baton of Bayorad poured out unfiltered criticisms. Cecil then raised her concern in a slightly uncomfortable tone. "There's no way to distinguish the red box from other races, however. We can just invent one. We can use their blood as our basis. If the people in the university, tower, and the empire gather, there's nothing they won't be able to do." Baton sounded very enthusiastic about the matter at hand. Helm, who had been watching silently, tried to say something, but Baton gave him no space to interrupt. The red box somehow manages to group up among themselves. That might mean they have a leader who rallies them together. The red box was a unique clan. Their existence itself was weak and almost unnoticeable, but many of them had developed their own talents. And there was definitely someone among their geniuses and prodigies who united and commanded them from a safe place. Baton managed to unveil that crucial information, but the leader of the red box should never die. According to the game's plot, he was a messiah, close to Buddha or Jesus. Their leaders most likely hiding off the grid, organizing and keeping their clan alive. Don't you feel disgusted knowing that they are plotting their schemes right under our noses? That alone is treason? Baton, that's a mere speculation. It was because of their resistance that many wizards died 60 years ago, Baton shouted back at Cecil's refute, who no longer replied to him. The uproar on the round table calmed down a little. Glython, who had been watching me since earlier, finally spoke up. What do you think, Decylene of Eucline? Everyone's gaze focused on me. Eucline. Since ancient times, we had been at the forefront of punishing demons, earning us a status that gave us great influence and power regarding matters related to them. Since I came from the world that oversaw this dimension, I was familiar with these events. According to that knowledge, it would be better to suppress the red box as much as possible. However, this world's common enemy was no longer the red box. That made the difficulty of the main quest in the future much easier. Long ago, they were our enemy, I calmly replied. But if you look at the history books one by one, you'll begin to understand that it was all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Baton cut in, but my glare immediately shut him up. I continued. It was a misunderstanding at first. 237 years ago, Rodrin, from the Rodrin witch incident, was accused of being a witch and was pushed to a corner, only to be found innocent. I brought up concrete evidence. Extensive oppression against the Red Box stemmed from that incident, causing their clan's blood to spill. Naturally, they resisted. Their resistance shed more blood, and that blood birthed to a short truce. I saw it on the setup sheet, and I also read works of literature that addressed it. Both of those allowed me to come up with a controversial thought. As you said, there had been another political move 60 years ago. A mine containing mana stones was discovered in the Red Box's land. This world's mana stone mine was much more important than modern oil and natural gas mines combined. Political move? That was no political move. Baton slammed his hand on the round table. There was a lot to learn about that 6-decade-old story, but that was another matter. I had to focus on persuading them for now. They are born from diabolic energy. There's no question about it. Shouldn't you know this more than others since you're a Eucline? Your family has been punishing demons far more than most of us, Baton shouted. He sounded almost as if he was having a seizure. I shook my head. Eucline's tradition is to hunt demons, not the Red Box. The Red Box are demons? His outcry caused the round table to ring. If we followed his words, it could one day lead to a massacre. After Baton's clamor, a long silence fell on the hall where all sorts of discourses had already been conducted. However, it did nothing but amplify the tension. I looked at him intently. Those words of yours, can you take responsibility for them? To demonize an entire race was the same as turning them into humanity's common enemy. Baton, of course, didn't answer. Control yourself from recklessly concluding and declaring races as demons. Remember, the very person who does so might just be the devil himself. I ended my statement with those words, causing the heads of the families to look at me with surprise in their eyes. Eventually, Dzekton's voice came up. Baton, please restrain yourself from uttering such ill-suited remarks. Since it doesn't seem like we will be able to reach a conclusion at this rate anyway, let's end today's conference here. The first meeting ended without a clear conclusion. It wasn't a big deal, though, since Sylvia had already prepared her resolve to stay here for 3 nights and 4 days anyway. The night was already dark when she reached the Rosary Hotel in the 4th District. Their accommodation only allowed 1 person per room. Sylvia looked at the paper she received from the hotel's caretaker. Night rules for the Rosary Hotel of Berk's 4th District. All of these rules apply only at night. 1. If you find an open door while walking around the hallway, never look inside or enter the room. 2. If someone knocks on your door, do not open it. You should also never answer it verbally. 3. There have been cases where bodies have been found in the bathroom. Do not panic and simply close the door. 4. Rosary Hotel is on the 1st floor of the building. Upon the appearance or discovery of stairs, do not climb up or down. 5. Once you lie on your bed, please refrain from walking until morning. Otherwise, you might be transported to a different space at any moment. 6. Making noise in the hallway is not allowed. The use of magic is also prohibited. Sylvia blinked after reading it all. They were unnecessarily horrifying rules, and even her father instructed her to wear earplugs. She wasn't a young child to go exploring anyway, and she felt so exhausted that all she wanted to do was sleep right away. Laying down on her bed, her hawk Quickstone stood by her bedside. "Good night." She greeted Quickstone and closed her eyes, falling into a silent slumber almost instantaneously. According to the clock, she slept for about 3 hours before opening her eyes due to thirst. Since then, Quickstone had been watching over her as she tossed and turned in bed. She felt relieved. Sleep comfortably. The hawk then closed its eyes as she rose and grabbed herself a cup of water on the shelf. After quenching her thirst, she turned around, finding herself standing in the middle of a hallway, not her room, but an endless hallway. She felt goosebumps rise all over her body. Chills clawed their way up her neck, causing her back to waver. She remembered the 5th rule too late. 5. Once you lie on your bed, please refrain from walking until morning. Otherwise, you might be transported to a different space at any moment. Feeling the cold floor underneath her, Sylvia looked down and found herself barefooted. Wee-eyeing, the wind blew, but she didn't know from where. Sylvia looked around and found a staircase not far away. She knew she shouldn't use them, however. 4. Rosary Hotel is on the 1st floor of the building. Upon the appearance or discovery of stairs, do not climb up or down. Let's calm down for now. As the wind blew ever so softly on her skin, Sylvia convinced herself that nothing bad would happen to her. With her will solidified, she stomped along the hallway until she stumbled upon a room with its doors open. She paused. 1. If you find an open door while walking around the hallway, never look inside or enter the room. She resumed walking, not even risking a glance. Nevertheless, she felt so nervous she thought her heart would burst. After a short while, she decided to try her luck. Standing in front of one of the closed doors, she knocked. However, no matter how long she waited, it didn't open. Wee-eyeing, again the wind brushed past her. Sylvia walked a little more and stood in front of a different door. Knock, knock. Nobody answered. She held the doorknob and twisted and turned it hard, but it didn't budge. With no other option left, she went to the next door. Knock, knock. She moved on. Knock, knock. As she busily moved through the corridor, she thought the people in the rooms might think she was the one the rules were warning them about. No, she was certain they clearly thought that. Scree-each. The wind hovering in the hallway turned into a dreadful shriek slowly, sounding like it was tearing through something. Sylvia hated scary things. Hence, instinctively, she applied even more strength into her knocks. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. However, nobody dared open their doors regardless. Coo-woo-woo-woo-ugh. Gradually, the grunts became clearer. Knock, knock. She intuitively knew she no longer had time to reach another door. Ga-ah-ah, a cold breath brushed past her nape. At the same time, a door opened, and the strange sense of deafness she felt immediately disappeared. Flop, she fell, her entire body lacking any strength. Feeling the warmth of the room, she slowly looked up as she tried to catch her breath. Sylvia, D'Quilin called her name. Are you lost? He stared at her as if nothing out of the ordinary just happened. He even opened the door wide fearlessly. Come in, Sylvia contemplated. Wee-eyeing, however, a bleak wind blew in the hallway once more, making her realize there was nothing to contemplate about. Regardless, she hesitated when she went inside anyway. Thank you. Sylvia bowed her head and looked around his room, which was as spacious and cozy as she expected. Have a seat. D'Quilin sat in a rocking chair near the fireplace while Sylvia sat in a small chair beside the bed. I'm sorry. It's okay. When I got out of bed, I don't know how, but I found myself in the hallway. D'Quilin picked up the book on top of the table. With his eyes on the page, he spoke to Sylvia. The concentration of mana in Burke's air reaches tens to hundreds of times the level of mana on flat land. Because of that, an unexplainable phenomenon occurs, which also causes magic to form shapes and ego. They're called phantoms, and there are many of them in this hotel. You should read the rules more carefully. Only D'Quilin could open the door, and the reason behind it was made apparent. He was immune to almost all mental interference. I see. Sylvia nodded. With her lips clattering, she looked around as she tried to calm herself down. "Why were you late today?" D'Killian answered without looking up from his book. "You don't need to know." Wriggling her fingers, she asked him another question. "Do you like books?" "It's the second best at most." He never liked books, but he found reading them the most relaxing hobby because of D'Killian's personality. He considered it one of his traits that he didn't need to overcome. Sylvia remained still for a moment. Looking at the fire in the fireplace, she then rubbed her palm together and cast magic. It's scorched fire. She proudly showed it to D'Killian. It had no sound and color, but it made the fire in the fireplace grow. D'Killian glanced at it from the corners of his eyes. "Great casting? I can give it colors, too." The scorched fire turned green. D'Killian nodded in satisfaction. "That's better." Sylvia, glancing at his expression, revealed a different magic. This time, her mana took the form of a cloud. "This is thundercloud. Well implemented. I can make it bigger." The thundercloud swelled up enough to cover half of the ceiling. D'Killian replied, "That's better." Sylvia this time conjured leaves that sprouted in the shape of a blade. "It's metal leaf." "Good work." When mixed with destructive magic, the leaves will fly away and attack the enemy. "You learned well." Sylvia showcased the knowledge and magic she learned from D'Killian's class, and since he was only giving compliments, she first thought he was just answering half-heartedly. However, she was proven wrong when she showed imperfections. The flow of your circuit is strange, which is a sign that you made a mistake in one of the points. You need to unfold it properly. The balance of your magic's properties isn't harmonious. To synchronize fire and water, neither side should be superior. That's the only mistake you made. He wholeheartedly corrected her, allowing her to understand and comprehend a few spells more clearly. However, her greed got the best of her. "What's my weakness? You should know that yourself." Sylvia pouted. "But you taught Epheren." D'Killian shook his head. "Epheren learned by herself." She clenched her fist unknowingly. D'Killian was still looking at the book, but his pupils stopped for a moment. "Don't be in a hurry," she shrugged. "Sylvia, time is on your side. You'll be able to grow as much as you desire." Even without the help of the system, and with just her own talent, she would become a wizard more perfect than anyone in this world. "You're one of the best 3 talents in this dimension." D'Killian's words were based on the structure of the system, speaking only of a future so foreseeable it was almost fated to happen. He sounded so full of confidence that she couldn't help but look a little surprised as she nodded. "SHH." At that moment, D'Killian suddenly raised his finger. "Stay still." The sharp iron on his bedside moved. Almost at the same time, a strange figure appeared on the ceiling. It was a phantom, the accumulation of a cruel and nastily distorted mana. Sylvia felt tremendous fear, but it only lasted for a brief moment. D'Killian's magic tore the phantom apart mercilessly. After solving the situation immediately, he murmured calmly, "I guess he came looking for you when I opened the door." Sylvia looked at D'Killian as she did her best to control her anxiety. To be exact, she looked at the iron on top of D'Killian's table. "Did you kill the ghost with that?" "Yeah." "Amazing." Sylvia's innocent admiration made D'Killian laugh. "This is nothing to be surprised about. My weapon and magic are specialized in killing." The main quest didn't give D'Killian time to develop equally. Hence, D'Killian's magic was extremely focused on combat and killing power. He was defeated by Veron, however. "What this world needs, Sylvia, is a talent in wizardry like yours. Magic wasn't made to kill people. It would be best if you remember that." Only then did Sylvia understand D'Killian at the round table today. She now knew for sure why he didn't berate the red box. Stop asking any more questions and go to sleep. Sylvia looked at D'Killian with surprise. "Shouldn't we do night watches in rotation?" "It'll be useless. The flow of time is different here." "I know. The mana phenomenon. Nights in the Highlands are different. It's only supposed to last 10 hours, but it can last up to 2 hours, 12 hours, or even 24 hours, and nobody knows if and when that will happen. It all depends on the state of the mana that day. That's why you should just go to sleep." D'Killian's tone was firm but sweet. She felt confused. Did he consider her as Iliade's assistant, a student, or a fool who couldn't even follow the rules? Regardless, she laid down on the bed. SHHHKK. SSHHHKK. Listening to the sound of the pages of a book turning and the embrace of the fire's warmth, she fell asleep. Before she did, she looked out the window with hazy eyes, finding a falling star. It was beautiful. Chapter 33. I went out of the hotel as soon as Sylvia fell asleep, following the man of great wealth's intuition in the form of lightning outside the window. Some supernatural phenomena occurred since I had intentionally violated the rules, but they weren't big threats. Rather, they seemed more like props and staff members of a low-budget haunted house amenity in theme parks. Where is it leading me? The mountain path from District 4 to the Elders' Hall. This place was close to Berk's borders and was a high-end area that players could only reach in the mid to late stages. Without the Berkt conference, they wouldn't even be allowed to enter unless they were an elder or a devoted student. That meant there was a high probability that I could acquire rare items here. I looked down the mountain range from Berkt's dark summit. Ghosts and phantoms of all kinds tried to haunt and attack me, but they couldn't even surprise me no matter how much they rampaged. I did find their attempts interesting, at least. Swishanashan Ray Rodney. Burakan Turnima. They seemed to be wondering why I wasn't surprised and thinking I was a fascinating individual. I destroyed the phantoms and explored Berkt's mountain range, loitering around the area for a while with the man of great wealth's vision turned on. Throughout my stay there, I saw tigers as big as a house and a snowflake that moved by itself, a snow spirit. I also came across a wildcat with 20 eyes. If possible, I would have slain them and used their parts as materials. Unfortunately, they didn't attack me first. All I could do was ignore them and slowly make my way through the dark mountains. Soon enough, a golden air current caught my eye inside the white coniferous forest, leading me to a charred spot. Burton Kylis Winima. Ratarata Krasln Wima. The phantoms spoke, but I ignored their words. At the end of the air current was a piece of wood that burned alone in the middle of the seemingly lightning-struck area. Purified magic tree fragment? Description: a fragment originating from a magic tree which contains plenty of mana. A lightning strike caused it to be ripped from its source and purified, thus becoming an excellent raw material for. Category: miscellaneous items. Special timber magic trees used mana as nourishment to grow. Most trees couldn't absorb mana in water or air, but mutated ones sometimes appear that bear the ability to do so, allowing them to accumulate the magical energy. That was why they could become a threat to humanity, and the best material for a wizard's wand at the same time. It was rare for them to be struck by lightning, however. Berkt's magic tree was in perfect quality, and when a lightning strike hit it, not only did it mature quicker, but it was purified by it. Excellent. A smile rolled up my lips. If I turned it into a staff or a wand, it would be a noble item that could tremendously raise a wizard's ability by more than half. I grabbed the fragment. Encouraged by this achievement, I moved hastily again. I even talked to the phantoms just in case. Guide me to the hidden treasures you're aware of. Krupaswirashiki? Kepruuwuwu? They spat out mana, then giggled and laughed. You're no help. Ignoring them, I moved on and continued to explore with my ability open, but I soon realized I was now acting out of greed. Silently, I looked east and found the morning sun rising slowly. Touched by the first streak of daylight, the ghosts and phantoms lost their forms. The time for the conference had come once more. Asterisk, Sylvia opened her eyes along with the break of dawn. Fixing her hair, which had become as messy as a magpie's nest, and looking around, she noticed Deculine was already gone. Sylvia, rubbing her eyes, tidied up her clothes and went back to her room. Quickstone was still sleeping on her bedside table. Knock, knock. Breakfast is here. She waited until the clock hit 10 a.m., then ate breakfast. An hour later, a group of 20 began their walk back to the Elders' Hall along with their assistants. She felt sorry for Alan, whom she passed by on the street. He was being treated like an outcast simply because he was the weakest of them all. The conference began at noon once more, hoping to finish the agenda they couldn't finish yesterday. Naturally, it began with the continuation of the red box matter. The first person to open their mouth this time, too, was Baton. Just as Eucline said, there is no definite proof that the red box are devils, but isn't it true that the devil exists through their blood? Tell me, is there a human with such a trait? Magic indeed flowed in their blood. The ambiguous relationship between the devil and the red box was derived from that. It was due to that gap that the wizard's suspicion rose. We don't know when or where the magic in their bodies will rage beyond control. It's highly possible for them to turn into a demon in no time. That is just mere speculation. Speculation? What are you trying to say? More than half of the wizards had animosity towards the red box. Right now, they were uniting to persuade Deucalion. Haven't you already decided that the red box are devils? Their whole clan hasn't even lost control of themselves, yet you already want to suppress them. Even if you can't, you pretend that you don't see them or simply act like you don't care, like they're below you. All you've been doing so far is focusing on that 1 in 1,000 possibility and use it as an excuse to drive out an entire race. But Deucalion was persistent. The magic that flows in them is faint, yet you're already labeling them as devils. That's no different from calling a cup of water a cup of salt the moment a pinch of salt has been mixed in it. Everyone at the Elders' Hall, including Sylvia, wasn't expecting this. It was a development that they couldn't comprehend. Deucalion was the one who downplayed the war his ancestors participated in 60 years ago. Ironically, the one that had made the most significant contribution to the murder of countless Red Box members was the Eucline family. It was through that exploitation that they gained partial rights to the Mana Stone mines. Even their religion is different from ours. Are we here to talk about religion? Has Burkt become the round table of beliefs? If not, then bring that topic up in a church, not here. Baton clenched his teeth. Nevertheless, Eucline was persistent, and he couldn't do anything about it. Burkt's round table members seemed equal at first glance, but some families had greater authority on certain items on the agenda than others. Of the 20 families gathered here, none clearly preceded Eucline's tradition and roots in the history of wizardry. The truth was, no one could undermine their authority over matters revolving around the devil's punishment. A demon hunter from 400 years ago was found in an ancient book, and it was presumed to be the Eucline family's ancestor. If the direct descendant of such a bloodline claimed that the Red Box clan wasn't composed of devils, we won't be able to reach a conclusion at this rate. This Red Box agenda shall be skipped and brought up again at the end of the conference. Boom! Baton slammed his hand against the table and looked at Deucalion with reddened eyes who didn't even blink. We'll start the next item on the agenda after a short break. Ha 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 ha. As soon as Glython sat in the waiting room, he burst out laughing. Dad, this is fun. So much fun. Glython right now looked completely different from his usual fatherly appearance. While chuckling, he seemed to be in deep thought. Perhaps he was thinking about Deucalion's true aim. However, Sylvia thought he would never find the answer since while it was simple, it was too simple for him to realize. What is that guy aiming for? Glython seemed so worried about it that the veins on his temples looked like they were about to pop. The real reason why Deucalion changed, why he set aside his ancestors' disposition. Magic wasn't made to kill people. Those were Deucalion's words last night. Asterisk, the Round Table easily reached conclusions for the agendas that followed the Red Box. Through it all, I only provided positive insights and light opinions to ease the other families' minds about the Red Box controversy, even by just a little. My words caused some of the families' anger to subside, but most were more interested in today's topics than in what I had to say. I wanted to activate the villain's fate, but they treated those who defended Red Box as villains right now. That was only natural, though. According to the game's story in the first Burkt conference, the Red Box's suppression was almost a definitive event. That aside, the conference ended after 9 hours. What in the world do you want? Are you secretly raising a Red Box? Baton grabbed me as soon as we got out of the Elders' Hall. I shook my head as I looked into his loathing-filled eyes. It would be best if you toned down your fury. Fury? No wonder. You deny the root of all of this since you only feel fury from me. It was your ancestors who regarded the Red Box as devils. My family followed your ancestors in war and were annihilated. Baton glared at me, and I gazed right back. Baton was short, but his body was firm, filled with both mana and stamina. Even so, there's no need to demonize their whole race. A wizard's rationale must be devoid of anger. Baton clenched his teeth, followed by ridicules flowing through his lips. Don't think this is the last day of the conference. Don't misunderstand, I don't hate the Bayorads. It does not matter. From now on, the Bayorads loathe you. Baton shoved past me. Tusk. The truth was, Baton's anger was understandable. The Bayorad family was met with more enthusiasm than any other family, but they absurdly lost almost everything, including their family leader, 60 years ago. They didn't even earn anything in return since they achieved so little. They only managed to rise again because of Baton and his father's strenuous effort. Cecil approached me not long after he left. I was suspicious of your sudden change of mind regarding the red box, but I share the same opinion. We should keep the temperature with the red box low from now on, since that would benefit us as well. The rest of the wizards didn't say anything to me, but there wouldn't have been many good intentions from them even if they did. They obviously didn't like my remarks, but that was the fruit of Deculine's vicious conduct. I didn't regret it, though. If I considered this a sacrifice, then it was worth it. Starting with the next Burkt summon, the intervals would be much shorter at 1 or 2 years, but the ways we would spend our time would become much more valuable. Players would have grown steeply through those moments, but in this world with no players, or at the very least in this world presumed to have none, I could only hope that a named more good-natured than I would grow with the remaining time. The morning of the following day, I went down to the first district before leaving Burkt. This town never ceases to be interesting no matter how many times I visit it. As could be seen from the enigmatic city built on the highlands, the motif of Burkt was Machu Picchu. The landscape appeared mystifying and admirable, but I didn't come here to go sightseeing. I had a great material for a wand in my possession. There was a master craftsman in Burkt, so I planned to order a wand after purchasing accompanying materials at a magic store. Is this expensive? While I was walking, I noticed a familiar face at a nearby market stall. Of course, it's a very precious material. Then show me something cheaper. No, I can't. You said you were going camping. Still, if you're going to camp in Burkt, you can't buy a cheap one. No, I won't even sell such an item to you, considering it would obviously get a person killed. It's okay. The Empire's Deputy Director of Public Safety. She was the one I came across while on my way to Burkt, Lilia Primian, a key named. Alan's eyes widened as he pointed at her with his finger. Ah, what's wrong? I was able to come here thanks to her. She's my savior. I see. I approached her, allowing me to hear their conversation clearer. Hey, just show me the cheaper alternatives. Oh ho. You can't use anything else other than this when camping in Burkt. Why are you saying it's the only one that can be used here? I asked if there's anything cheaper. You only need to tell me if there is or isn't. Yes, there's a cheaper one, but if you use it for camping, you'll be taken by the phantoms. No, forget it. If there's a cheaper one, just let me buy it. I wasn't sure if they were bargaining or quarreling. I stepped in between them as their anger began to boil. Both Primian and the storekeeper looked at me at the same time. That sleeping bag, how much is it? Oh, it's 10,000 elnies. People are most vulnerable to bewitching magic while sleeping, but this, I'll buy it. I issued a check for it on the spot. The owner shook his head with a smile. No, we don't accept checks, just cash. Look at the crest. The owner surveyed the check carefully, where the Eucline family crest and Deculine's signature could be found. The owner looked at it in my face alternately, then smiled. Ha ha ha. This has become an entirely different matter since you're the head of the Eucline. Here, please take it. After buying it, I handed it to Primian, who was standing next to me with a blank expression on her face. Take this. What? Why are you giving this to me? Primian took it with suspicion. Alan arrived safely because of you. Consider it as your compensation. My assistant professor laughed like a fool while scratching the back of his neck. He. Primian clicked her tongue in disapproval, but she still took it. I left and proceeded to walk around the market. Since Berkt had a reputation for being a haven of magical materials, I easily found the ones I needed for my wand. White tiger's fang, white swan's feather, monostone candle, etc. I spent 4 million elnies just to buy 8 items. Of course, I didn't have that much in my personal account, but I used our family check to pay anyway. Uriel would be the one making the payment later. Even if she didn't, I could easily pay for them using the money earned by selling the vase. W.O. Alan shivered at my expenditure. A restaurant caught my eye while we were walking, and though I wasn't hungry, its exterior and interior looked uncommon and luxurious. I went inside, almost as if bewitched by its appearance. "Oh, welcome, Count Eucline." The staff recognized my face. To be fair, it seemed like it only served customers like me in the first place. A sly voice soon reached my ears, however. "Oh, what's this? Tilda, why, if it isn't the noble Count Eucline Tilda, the rewaned family head's cheap blonde hair first caught my eye. He had been enjoying wine since early morning." Ihelm was about to say something, but stopped abruptly. He was looking behind me with his eyes widened. "What's this? Even Deputy Director Primian is here? I heard camping is your hobby, and I didn't expect to find you here at Berkt." It wasn't until Ihelm pointed out her presence that I found out she stuck to me. "I come here only during my vacation," Primian replied with a sleeping bag on her side. She made it sound like she had always been a part of our group. Did I clear a quest that granted me a companion without me knowing? If so, I just gained a reward far more than the price I had to pay for her sleeping bag. I took a seat behind the table an employee assigned to us, but Ihelm still spoke to me. His face was already red as if to show that he had already drunk quite a lot of wine. "Hey, D'Killeen, I'm curious. Why did you suddenly change your stance?" Ignoring him, I ordered food for 3 people, including Alan and Primian, who strangely still hadn't left. "Have you never desired to beat the red box to death? They are an inferior species that do not deserve to live in our world. Don't you remember your thesis criticizing their clan at the university?" Ihelm sneered, recalling a distant past. He then glared at me with his alcohol-intoxicated eyes. "By any chance did you save a red box and turn them into a slave? Was there a genius among their kind who did your research for you?" "No," Alan stood up and shouted. "Our head professor is nothing like that. Please refrain from insulting him further." Ihelm smirked without disregarding his courage. "If that isn't the case, then I can't possibly understand this situation. Why did you, of all people, defend the red box?" "What? Can't even say anything about this matter." I shook my head. "No, it's just that your brain has become too rotten to understand my reasoning." "I see." Ihelm glared at me as he gave me an odd smile. "I heard it took 6 months before you could present your research." "No, was it 3? It doesn't matter. Your underhanded tactics will be revealed, Tilda. You'll see, Tilda." Ihelm stood up, shrugged, then left. His tone and stare remained unpleasant until the end. If ever those words are true, this time it was Primian who spoke as she looked at me. "It will become a huge problem." "I said it isn't," Alan shouted. Primian glanced at him as she continued. "Slavery was abolished a long time ago. Even if they're a Red Box member, it would still be considered a serious criminal offense. Of course, only if it's true. Give me back the sleeping bag if you're going to continue talking like that. And pay for your meal as well." Primian smiled blankly and shut up. She didn't dare utter even a single word while we ate. Chapter 34. After finishing the meal, we immediately left the restaurant. Primian kept acting like an NPC since she thought she should at least guard me after receiving the sleeping bag. With that thinking, she even caught an adventurer trying to steal from my pockets. Soon enough, we stopped in front of some dilapidated wooden building. "You can go now." "I'll be on my way then. I'll just consider this sleeping bag as something I picked up on the streets." "Alan, wait outside." "Yes." Primian left, and Alan, who tried to follow me, stepped away and moved as I instructed. I knocked on the door and went inside, a scent similar to an antique bookstore immediately entering my nostrils. Gentle breezes slipped through the cracks all over its wooden walls. "Is anyone here?" I spoke politely and formally, which made me feel like writhing. However, the owner of this place was worth the highest formality. "Uggum, who's there?" A voice hindered by phlegm came from above, making me realize stairs were waiting for me at my blind spot. Creak, creak, creak. I felt as if every step the person took on the wooden stairs made the entire building shake. Eventually, an impressionable old man entered my view. "I'm here to place an order for a wand." "Wand?" Due to his long, gray hair, he looked like a wizard. He put on his glasses and looked at me. "Oh, aren't you Deculene?" I bowed politely without saying a word. "As I said last time, you've changed a lot. Know this?" The old man's eyebrows shook, his wrinkles moving along with them. "Has your soul been reversed? It looks like you've been through a lot. Your heart and the flow of your blood have become much gentler than before. Even the way you talk is different." My heart sank for a moment, but I didn't show it. "I'm here to place an order for a wand." He nodded with a satisfied grin. "Okay, I'll accept it this time. What kind of wand do you want?" From the way he said it, it sounded like the old Deculene had come here before as well. Well, even when he wasn't a player, he knew of the master craftsman Rockalock. Just a wand. Wands, staffs, canes. Magic wands have many different forms. As long as you use all of this, anything is good. I took out a fragment of the magic tree that I hid in my arms, causing the old man's eyes to flash. "Oh ho, a magic tree fragment. If I use this, then it's possible." That's not all. I spread out all the other materials I purchased at a magic store. According to the man of great wealth's eyes, all of these were of the highest quality. Rockalock's jaw dropped. "Oh ho ho. These, along with the magic tree. Do you desire the best wand to ever exist? I'll be satisfied for as long as it's worthy of going down through history." Why don't you add some blood, too, then?" I couldn't help but think twice about his suggestion. He provided an explanation. "Eucline's blood is good enough to be used as material. Your family has a deep and rich history, after all." "Okay." I was worried that my talent might not be enough, but the old man would know if it would have a negative effect anyway and would skip it if so. Filter it well. I rolled up my arms, and he swiped his index finger diagonally across it, causing my forearm to be cut painlessly and for my blood to gush out. Controlling its flow, he placed it on a beaker. I normally don't take too long to make a wand, but I need to devote my heart and soul to the creation of this one. Wait for 10 days. I'll send it to you in a package. Packaging it would be a little too risky, but Rockalock added an explanation as if he read my mind. "If I build a magical vault using your blood, no one will be able to open or break it aside from you." "How much is it?" 4 million elnes, including the vault and shipping fee. 4 million was much more expensive than I expected, excluding the cost of the materials. Uriel's distorted face came to mind. I disregarded it. I could earn 10 million elnes from the vase anyway. "Do you take family checks? You're a Eucline." I nodded and issued a check. The old man grinned with satisfaction. "Great, you'll get it in 2 weeks at the latest." "Okay. I'll be on my way." "Sure, ho 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 ho." When I bowed at the old man's laugh, a number of messages popped up. Side quest completed. Rockalock's wand. First condition, earn enough fame or notoriety. Second condition, find the kind-hearted virtuous man or repentance. Third condition, gain Rockalock's interest through high-quality materials. Fourth condition, more than 2 visits. Store currency +1. A wand made by Rockalock. A quest was cleared out of the blue. Of course, it was thanks to Deculene, who dropped by here once before, though I didn't know when. Thanks. I left the store satisfied. Meanwhile, at the Freyham Knights Commander's office on the outskirts of the continent, Julie was having a conversation with Rayleigh, a relative who hadn't visited in a long time. "I'm really busy these days, and I'm not earning much money. Adventurers can't do anything. All it does is put an even bigger hole in my finances. Honestly, I'm only doing this for my ID since it allows me to travel abroad with no limits." "I'm envious." Julie laughed in response to Rayleigh's complaints. "Miss Knight, you made the right choice by turning away from the path of an adventurer." Haha. Becoming an adventurer was also an option that Julie once considered. No, there was a time when she had no choice but to leave it due to Deculene's pressure. Should I just throw everything away and leave? She used to have such thoughts a long time ago. By the way, Rayleigh. When Rayleigh finished talking, Julie quietly changed the subject. Yes. Do you by any chance know about Killian's fiancé? She felt like her entire body was having an allergic reaction when she asked it. She violently swept her hair back. What about it? What's with your tone? No, it's nothing. Just... Julie remembered the Killian she saw some time ago at the tombstone of his deceased fiancé. She coincidentally stumbled upon him, and she didn't intend to peep, but it was also true that she couldn't bring herself to leave. His tears clearly showed how he felt about his fiancé. No, it's nothing. Well, I'm not sure. Rayleigh was an adventurer who graduated from the tower. She was 2 years Killian's junior, which meant they knew each other from when his better half hadn't passed away yet. I don't know. I thought it was just two nobles dating. Not much has been revealed about them, so there's not much that I know. I didn't even know they were engaged. You didn't know? Yes, I just knew that she was sickly. She was always at home. Why are you asking me this? Rayleigh tilted her head, becoming suspicious of her motives, albeit a little too late. Julie shuddered her shoulders. No reason. You know she's already dead, right? Well, yes. Are you thinking you can use that as an excuse to break up the marriage? No, that's not what I meant. Julie sighed in vain. She simply became curious about how much he loved her, that it was enough to make such a cold person weep. How he expressed his emotions so openly was hard for her to forget. It was clear he still hadn't forgotten his old love. Yet once a month he requested for Julie to smile. Maybe the reason why he promised to change was related to her. Do I look like his fiancé? Forget it, I was just curious. Really? Knock, knock. With a knock, Vice Captain Rockfell came in wearing, strangely, a black cape. Captain, what's going on? Rockfell bowed at Julie's words without answering. After a while, he bit his lips softly. He sighed, then finally spoke despite his voice sounding somber. Julie and Rayleigh's expressions grew stiff and cold. Asterisk at the same time at the Eucline head's office within Hadecane, Uriel gazed out the window while complaining. In any case, I'm the idiot who expected it. The anger that had piled up in her head hadn't been released yet. Why not me? Oh, so annoying. I know I quit magic halfway through, but I'm much better than, what's his name again? Alan. He didn't even look special. She could never understand why he chose him as his assistant professor and thought it would have been better if he took her with him instead. Tusk. Well, it had been 3 days already anyway. She now had grown to roughly accept it. It's been more than 10 years since we were last apart. She found it hilarious to be by each other's side now. At least I'm aware that we still hate each other. Killian doesn't like me, and I don't like him. I hate Killian. I hate him. Hattie, tweet. While she was loathing, a sparrow lightly landed outside the window frame. Uriel looked at it with her arms propped up against the window. It didn't run away even when she opened the window stealthily. Hey, come here. She stretched out her finger. The sparrow hopped on top of it and began to sing a song, chirp, chirp, PFFT. Strangely, animals liked her. She didn't even treat them that pleasantly. So cute. Now fly away. As if following her instruction, the sparrow soared to the skies and flew above Hadecane. The spectacular view of the huge city stretched out before her. Uriel took a deep breath as she was overwhelmed with great emotion. Now this land belonged to her. She wasn't a proxy lord anymore. She was a real lord. That fact made her every waking day delightful. Every morning felt new, and Hadecane's air and environment seemed lovelier than ever before. Knock, knock. Miss Uriel. Her butler came in. What is it? A check came through the family. Is it a trade payment? Uriel received the check with a good heart. The very next moment, her fingers trembled. Am I hallucinating? She hoped she was. She closed her eyes and looked at it again. It didn't change. 8.02 million elnies? Yes. Who? What kind of expenditure is this? It looks like the head bought some items at Berkt. Dumbfounded and with her mouth open, Uriel rested her forehead on her hand. Oh, that fucking *** main quest completed. Berkt's summon. Store currency plus 3 rattle. The slow tremors of the train, which was running at about 70 km/h, felt awkward because of the person sitting next to me. Baton. Coincidentally, due to the volume of the VIP carriage on the express train, we ended up sitting side by side with the corridor between us. However, we had been silent for 2 hours because of pride. As we looked sideways, our eyes met. Baton spoke first. If it were 15 years ago, I would have demanded a duel. I thought it was a relief. I didn't want that to happen, considering I still wasn't strong enough to break through his barrier. But due to the provocation, my body reacted first almost unconditionally, like a reflex. I don't want you to die. It wasn't because there were 3 heads and 4 assistants in the same space. It was simply a matter of dignity and pride. Killian's unique personality was reinforced depending on who he was with and what the situation was. Duel at the next stop. Don't choose a magic death over a natural one. Magic rose beside Baton, and I just looked at the energy with a light heart. Hey, everybody. Clap, clap, clap. The loud applause ruined my concentration. Glython, sitting in the back seat, had approached us with a satisfied grin and rubbed Baton and my shoulders alternately. Calm down, Baton. You weren't here 15 years ago. Back then, 3 people died on the way to Burkt, 6 died during the conference, and 2 died after it. 7 of the casualties were assistants, but at least 4 of them were heads. He whispered in his ear. Or do you really think you can win against Killian? What? If you can't even reach your toes, you should at least know how to bow down. Baton clenched his teeth at his whispering voice. However, he didn't refute his words. It was Glython, after all. Pat, pat. He patted his shoulder. Of course, Baton, who's always up for a challenge, has high potential. Challenges are the heart of a Bayorad, Glython laughed. I felt burdened by his overestimation of me. But you really are something, Killian, Glython murmured naively, his attention now directed towards me. In the past, you used to tell wizards off for no reason at all, but now you're looking for a fight over significant things. You talk a lot. Haha, that's because I'm old. You were so young 15 years ago, but you've grown so much before I could even realize. I didn't say anything. Beyond his shoulder, Sylvia was craning her neck and looking this way. He reached out to Alan next to me. Did you say you were Alan? Nice meeting you. This is the first time I have had this connection here in Burkt with an assistant professor from the tower. Oh, yes, it's an honor. Yes. You did a great job. Ha ha ha. Smiling slyly, he went back to his daughter's side. There had been no notable incidents since then, no talking to each other and no threats. We all quietly and safely arrived at the platform. Alan got off the train and stretched loudly. Looking around the place, the atmosphere of the landscape was much heavier than when I first came. There was heavy snow on the platform, and someone was looking at me through the snow. It was Julie, dressed in white armor and a black cape. She was also with her knights, who wore the same outfit as her. I approached her as she stared at me, step. I walked on the platform, my footprints engraved on the ground that was slowly becoming a snowfield, and gazed back at Julie's trembling eyes. Once she was within arm's length, Julie spoke. I heard. Her voice was no different than usual. No, it was more solidified now, sounding rather frail, but without even a little tremor. Is that so? I thought about what to say to her. In fact, I already arranged my thoughts. Veron, one of her knights, tried to kill me, and he met his end while we were fighting. I should at least tell Julie that. I heard you were attacked. But when I saw her face, my mind became strangely sloppy. There was an unknown emotion within me. I was certain it wasn't mine, but my mind was mistaking otherwise. No, it really felt like it was. I was. I knew her character. I knew her beliefs. Julie looked firm on the outside, but she's on the brink of breaking down internally. It's a relief that you're safe. Julie's tone was filled with sincerity. She continued talking before I could say anything. I read it in an article. You worked with him to save the survivors. I just stood still. I didn't know what article she read or what she was told, which meant I couldn't speak carelessly. I just have one question. The train arrived on the other side. What was he like? I chose my words carefully. I looked into Julie's eyes and thought deeply. Well, I couldn't lie to her. He was an emotional guy. Those were the only words I could utter. Julie took a deep breath and lowered her head. Thank you, we have to go now and see him. Please rest well. I watched her as she turned away, noticing her thin shoulders had been covered with snow. One of the many knights who was following Julie then talked to me. Do you want to come along? At the same time, many of the other knights looked at me. They were all Julie's henchmen. I was a bother to their eyes. I could bury this truth for Julie. The fact that Veron tried to kill me would cause their entire night order to collapse and crumble down, including Julie. Her character was inflexible and upright, and she would be madly distressed by mistaking her subordinate's fault as hers. That was all I could do for her, however. I would never do a eulogy for the fucking bastard who tried to kill me. I didn't know if it was Dequilline's ego or Kim Woo-jin's heart, but it was something that I couldn't even force myself to do. No, we'll go by ourselves. They left me behind and boarded the train when I didn't reply. I heard the sound of a tongue clicking as they did. Ha! I laughed in vain unknowingly. Those knights' eyes displayed all the rotten thoughts they had despite not knowing anything. It was so nauseating that my teeth almost chipped. "Excuse me, Professor," Alan spoke up then. I shook my head as I stared at him. "Alan." "Yes, yes." "Be quiet." My anger was starting to boil. I felt like a ghost, however, since I couldn't see Julie's face. Regardless, if I didn't feel mad now, I wouldn't be human, Professor. Another ringing voice called me. I looked at its source, Sylvia. There was snow piled up on the top of her head and shoulders. "Why did you put up with it?" Sylvia looked at me while saying so. I didn't know what her eyes were thinking. The pitch of her voice, which was always steady, was a little odd. "What do you mean?" Sylvia rummaged through her bag without saying anything and took out something. "Payment." "A book." I just looked at it. "Ah, I'll take it instead." Alan tried to take it for me, but Sylvia didn't hand it over to him. While they were having a trial of strength, she pushed him off. That left me no choice but to take the book that was being forced on me. "I'm going." Sylvia walked away with her head down. As the train was about to leave, I gazed back at the black-clad group mourning loudly. My eyes met with Julie's, who was sitting by the window. Not long after, my eyes widened. Julie was smiling at me. It had no strength and was too vague to be called a smile, but the corners of her lips were raised slightly. She still seemed in pain, but once a month she kept her promise. My mind was amazingly purified by it. "Really?" I thought what I was feeling was serious. "Alan?" "Yes, let's go back." "I want to rest." I turned around. Chapter 35, Julie and her night order arrived at the scene of the incident, which wasn't too far from the fourth stop. It was less than an hour away from Burkt. During the first attack, Professor Dequilline managed to ensure the train's safety and rescue the survivors along with Sir Veron. An officer from the security department explained the situation. But the whole carriage fell from the cliff during the second attack, and Sir Veron allegedly went down with it. The VIP carriage that Professor Dequilline was in miraculously didn't, however. "I see." The officer's detailing allowed them to understand what transpired properly. He also showed a copy of Roan's photograph. Unfortunately, this place is so remote that the only eyewitness accounts are the persons directly involved. "Have you seen the article?" "Yes." Julie had already read it and saw the picture of Dequilline calmly sitting inside a train floating in midair. "Well, not all of the photos were released, just like this one." He showed one more picture. It was the corpses of the knights who attacked the train. Maybe the head professor subdued them. He's essentially no different from being a one-man army. Ha ha. The officer added with a smirk, but the knights did not laugh. Sensing the atmosphere, he regained his composure as he continued. "Based on the pieces of evidence we have, it appears the two of them tried to handle the situation, and Knight Veron suffered from an accident during the second attack." "Thank you." "No worries." Julie bowed politely and looked around. The lands were white and endless, stretching far beyond the horizon. Just the sight of it was enough to send her mind to some distant memory. Rockfell sat on the tracks and mumbled like he was sighing. That fool. He lived diligently, only to meet his end just by being an escort. Julie couldn't hear him, though. Her ears felt numb and vacant. She thought she was used to losing colleagues, but she kept remembering the poor life they lost. Without anything to his name, he rose from the bottom at a young age and pursued his dream tirelessly, and after his countless efforts, he finally saw the light of day. Julie asked the officer, "Did he happen to leave anything?" "Unfortunately, he didn't." "Then the one behind the attack." "That remains unsolved. In the first place, nobody's supposed to be blamed for whatever happens throughout one's journey to Burkt. The only victim of the incident is Sir Veron, too, which makes it difficult for the higher-ups to decide whether to investigate or not. It was an understandable concern. Julie nodded. My little sister Tilda, she heard a voice enter her ears, but she couldn't find anyone calling out to her. Surprised, Julie took out her wallet from her pocket, unexpectedly finding a crystal marble inside it. Julie hurriedly moved away from her position. What? I heard about the incident. That's why I called Tilda. When did you put this marble in my wallet? While you weren't aware, of course. Kekek Tilda Josephine laughed. That aside, I heard a member of yours was attacked. Aren't you curious about the whole story? Are you saying you know the whole story? Of course. I'm the queen of high society. Many people out there would willingly give me anything if I asked for it. Josephine indeed had a lot of connections, which meant she could gather as much information about any topic as she needed. She could get her hands on and absorb almost all rumors in high society if she so wanted. Do you want me to tell you what I know? Julie was suspicious of her, but she had no external issues. On the contrary, Josephine's reputation was more beautiful than anyone else in this world. If it's illegal, it's nothing like that, so you better pay attention. First of all, the wizard family of the Ryok Kingdom is most likely to be behind the attack. At the conference 15 years ago, 2 of their heads were killed, and my guess is they wanted to get revenge, but not really on Dekulin in particular. They were aiming for any head in the Empire, and it just so happened that he was the one caught in that trap. As you probably can already tell, our world already has quite a lot of rumors about it. Julie was speechless. That would mean Veron was struck down blindly and was simply collateral damage. No matter how hard I think about it, though, there's something about it that I find strange. Roan was the one who requested Veron escort that train. Roan? Yup, Galak has many henchmen, and among them is Rot's little brother. Rot's a businessman and my personal connection, Galak. Roan, Rot, Julie frowned at the names. She knew none of them. You don't know them. Julie, you should at least know the name of. Julie looked at the knights around her as her older sister continued, finding them loitering around the tracks with knotted faces. Galak. He's Glython's real brother. Julie opened her eyes wide. I'm sure you know Glython, and I'm honestly not surprised you don't know Galak. Publicly, it's been more than 30 years since they cut off their relationship, but they can't fool my eyes. I don't know if they fought for real then or not, but I'm certain they're helping each other right now. I'm not sure about Glython, but Galak definitely isn't above committing dirty deeds. What does Glython have to do with this attack? I still don't know. I'm wondering why in the world would Galak request Veron to be the escort on that train myself. That's what bothers me. Anyway, that's all I've heard. You know the price for this, right? You should treat me sometime. Okay. Good, I'm going now. Josephine cut off the connection. Gilthian, Julie thought about the Iliad family head. She knew full well about his bad reputation through Zeit. But it had been 10 years since he turned over a new leaf, making this situation closer to being a coincidence. But, what the hell happened there? Julie looked down at the cliff, causing rubble to roll down as she pushed it with her heels. At the bottom was a distant end of the fog-covered ravine. Her colleague's corpse was down there. Asterisk. The 5th-week lecture for understanding elemental properties was naturally cancelled due to the issue at Berkt, so I gave them homework instead. Write a thesis about one pure elemental magic. I was certain some of them hated to do it, so I added a clause that they didn't have to do it if they didn't want to. Instead, I just deduct points from their grade. After that, I enthusiastically prepared test questions in the mansion. This time, they were my original works. Of course, they were still inspired by previous test questions, but their solutions and answers were certainly different. I also devoted myself to magic, which in turn resulted in my success in applying basic fire control technique to my beginner psychokinesis. As a result, distant fire control had become possible for me to utilize. My next target technique was basic earth control. After about a week of cycling between training, drills, and research, the day had finally come. I couldn't help but feel awe as I used vision to look at the questions I made. Amazing. A golden air current was swaying around the test paper, caused by the reaction of my man of great wealth ability, a total of 8 items. Numbers 1 and 2 were focused on theory, while the rest mostly focused on application and practical use. Among them, numbers 7 and 8 level of difficulty was at least above a debutante. They would be correct if they thought numbers 1 to 6 were roughly one-variable functions and numbers functions. If they diligently attempt to solve them, they should be able to understand and come to the right conclusion. As an examinee or a wizard, the insights they would gain from challenging difficult problems would further push their growth. I came out of the separate building in a good mood, meeting Roy on my way to the main building. My lord, this is the result of the auction. Roy took out a piece of paper and handed it to me. It was a check with the breakdown for the result of the flower vase of the master craftsman from the East auction and the payment deposit. It was sold at a really high price. The final bid was no less than 21 million. Of course, it would only be between 13 to 15 million elnies after deducting commission, tax, and other fees, but it was more than twice what I expected. Yes, we asked the tower to analyze the pedal's components, and we received good results. The pedals are excellent for fatigue recovery and have beneficial effects on the skin. Thanks to that, the majority of the noblewomen participated in the auction. I see what you mean. Our earnings from it are enough to finance the mansion's budget, right? It is. Did you hear anything from Uriel? Yes. I spent about 9 million at Berkt, yet she hadn't called me in a week. Was she cutting me some slack? Delivery, you have a package, Count Eucline. A shout came from the mansion's front gate. I came from Berkt. The man shouting was enveloped by a grave aura. Looking at him closely, I noticed he had an adventurer's ID around his neck. Please sign first. Adventurers do deliveries too, I asked while I approached to sign. Haha, we do anything as long as we're paid. I'll get going now. The box he left was heavy. My heart was pounding, inappropriate for my pride. Roy, go get some rest. Thank you. I went to my room at the main building, pretending that it wasn't a big deal, and confirmed my biometric information on the magic vault. As the box opened, I thought about many things. It had only been a week. The old man didn't make it half-heartedly, did he? Or was D'Aquiline's blood too nasty? Despite having those concerns, I couldn't help but be captivated the moment the package finally revealed what was inside it. Rockaloc's Eucline cane. Description: a cane made by the master craftsman Rockalock, dedicating it to Eucline, for the exclusive use of D'Aquiline von Grahan Eucline. Category: equipment cane. Special effects store a maximum of 500 mana. The cane itself functions as a supplementary circuit, naturally increasing the user's magical performance. Item characteristics: steel wood. Description: increases the user's natural wood-related abilities and properties. The cane's body is made out of the highest quality of wood, providing it with immense physical durability and reinforcement. Self-study. Description: the cane studies, understands, and deciphers the magic performed by the user to help them use and cast it more efficiently. Aesthetic item. Description: this item's beautiful design is further enhanced by its ability to change its colors depending on the user's outfit. Blood of Eucline. Description: this cane's power excels even further when used for purging and exorcism. Its beauty and performance were already equal to that of an artifact, and that wasn't even taking its item characteristics into consideration yet. Rockalock took my characteristics from ancient times. Fortunately, he only included the good ones and filtered out the rest. This is only 9 million elnies. Did I just get a huge discount? I fiddled with my cane, feeling the same way I did when I first bought a smartphone when I was just a kid. It was childish to be excited with just a cane, and my next class would start in 3 days. I had to prepare for my lecture. Of course, its format had already been set, and I already made a written proposal to borrow a classroom for the last class before the midterm exam, which was called Combined Magical Combat Training. Wednesday, the last lecture before the midterm exam. Ephraim arrived on the 5th floor of the tower. Today's class wasn't going to be held in class on the 3rd floor, but the last floor. What else are we going to do? There were only 3 classrooms on the 5th floor. She held the doorknob of one of them and turned it. What greeted her made her jaw drop. Before her was an area so wide she couldn't see the ends of it. It had a hemispherical ceiling, a rectangular stage in the center, and even audience seats at the sides. It looked like a stadium. Wizards had already gathered in it and were causing quite the commotion. "Ah, Iffy." The CRMC members, including Julia and Ferret, approached her. A group of commoners naturally formed around Epheren, while her antipode was Sylvia. Nobles crowded around Sylvia, who was at the Berkt conference, an extraordinary place. Epheren glanced at Sylvia, while Sylvia didn't pay any heed to Epheren. At exactly 3 o'clock, Deculine appeared at the entrance, causing the noisy chatters to immediately subside. He was as confident and noble as always, but he held a cane that looked excessively luxurious in one hand this time. He just went to Berkt. Did he buy it there? Welcome. Deculine headed to the middle of the stage, where he continued talking while looking down at the wizards. Today's class is magical combat practice. Participating in magical combat was inevitable for wizards. Even if they tried to avoid it, they would ultimately fail. The debutantes were nervous. Also, clack, when Deculine snapped his fingers, the veil on the edge of the stadium lifted. What? Behind it was a crowd of hundreds of people, surprising Epheren and her classmates. It's an open practice. The wizards looked around in surprise and soon caused an uproar, but they were silenced when Deculine spoke firmly about the lecture's progression and goal. You may utilize any magic to battle against each other, but at least 3 pure elemental magic must be mobilized. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. I will focus solely on the battle itself, noting down your strengths and weaknesses as I observe. I hope you develop further with the foundations I've provided. Professor Relin. Yes. Relin appeared, a professor from the Department of Assistive Studies. He waved his hand, enjoying the attention of the wizards and spectators. Professor Relin will regulate the battles to avoid life-threatening situations or damages, eliminating the need to limit yourselves. Ha. Everyone, just trust me. We'll start the class now. First one, Urajan. Yes. Dumbfounded, Urajan raised his hand and climbed onto the stadium. Pick an opponent. You can choose anyone here. He hesitated at first, but soon chose one of his friends, a man named Lawton. They soon stood facing each other. You have 3 minutes. Begin. At Deculine's words, they exchanged magic awkwardly at first. Urajan's fire spread thinly like a veil and enveloped Lawton, who immediately intervened in its path using mana. Shwee-ee-ee-ee-I. The flame's extinguishment caused steam to appear, which Lawton then froze and launched like metal spikes towards Urajan. Clang. Urajan defended himself with a barrier. After their first clash, their awkwardness disappeared, allowing them to become serious. They repeatedly materialized, destroyed, and defended against each other's magic, but their bout didn't even last for a minute. Cuck! A groan marked the end of the spar. The wizard who ran out of mana first was Lawton. Urajan wins, but remember, your scores depend on the process of the battle itself, not its outcome. Deculine took notes while monitoring the fights. No, to be more precise, his fountain pen was moving and taking notes by itself. Next, Beck. Beck, who Epheren thought was an extremely wicked noble, smirked and chose Ferret. Ferret climbed up the sparring field in fear. Begin. The two fired out pure elemental magic, but the difference in their level was clear. Ferret's support magic couldn't even withstand Beck's destructive magic for 30 seconds. Beck wins. Next, Rondo. The matches progressed minute by minute. While focusing on the debutante wizards' battles, Epheren was caught up with an idea revolving around Deculine's words, which kept bothering her. Pick an opponent. You can choose anyone here. The fights between wizards continued, causing electrical currents to thunder through the stadium and the ground to vibrate and tremble. Tiles rose and metal surged up from flames. Even Epheren couldn't help but be surprised by the electromagnetic gusts created by combining wind and electric currents. Watching the matches awakened her desires dwelling at the deepest parts of her mind. Next, Epheren. Finally, having her name called, she went up to the stadium alone without choosing anyone. All the wizards were looking at her strangely, but she paid no heed to them. Can I really choose anyone? Yes. Eferen dropped her gaze for a moment. She got a definite answer from this. I can choose anyone, anyone. Don't take too long, Eferen. Dekilleen pressured her, but something was blocking her ears and causing her insides to feel warm. She felt as if mana was coursing through her blood vessels. Eferen slowly raised her head. She then stretched out her finger, revealing its scars and calluses that served as the proof of her hard work. Soon enough, its tip landed on her target, Head Professor Dekilleen. Her ultimate goal was to defeat him with her own abilities. Naturally, she knew she still had a long way to go. However, she wanted to determine the difference between them right here, right now, by sincerely competing against him. She didn't care if she was years too early to challenge him. She didn't care if their fight would result in her defeat. I just don't want to miss this opportunity. Everyone in the stadium looked at her like she had gone crazy. Even Eferen momentarily thought the same herself. What? You crazy bitch! Hey you, get down from there! Professor R'Lin came running while screaming, but Eferen lowered neither her arm nor her gaze. Naturally, Dekilleen didn't avoid her eyes. Eferen went back to the winter 4 months ago, remembering her emotions when she first saw him. I choose the professor. As she uttered those words, she saw it clearly, a faint but twisted smile on Dekilleen's lips. Chapter 36. Get down from there, idiot! R'Lin suddenly shouted, using more abusive language than Dekilleen. His reddened face was about to burst. Calm down, Professor R'Lin. What? But... Dekilleen calmed R'Lin down himself, then walked slowly and stood in front of Eferen. I can, right? She had lost her rationality, but Eferen still had doubts in her voice. I said you could choose anyone in here. I didn't impose any limits. Dekilleen shot his cane at the ground. Thud, the thundering echo and shockwave disheveled Eferen's hair. However, I need to put myself in an appropriate disadvantageous condition. I won't attack you, and if this cane falls to the ground, it will be your victory. Okay. Eferen clenched her fist as she nodded. Dekilleen stood on the opposite side of her. She could feel her heart beating like crazy. Regardless, for her, this was a moment of hope. It was as if the day she had been dreaming of had finally come. Hoo-oh! After taking a deep breath, she first imbued mana on her bracelet. Begin. Gusts of wind enveloped Dekilleen's body. Acceleration. Pure elemental magic could also be used for accumulating and accepting elements of the wind. People were often mistaken that acceleration worked only on the movements of one's body. However, it could also affect the speed of magic. The gap between firing magic could be shortened through it. Eferen finished warming up silently. A battle between wizards was usually no different from a battle between attributes. Each person charged into battle with the element appropriate for their abilities or for countering their opponent, but Eferen didn't need to do that. Her attribute was a vessel and not an element. Her bracelet itself was her attribute. It served as a catalyst that commanded magic, allowing all 4 elements to be used without penalizing her or reducing her performance. Huff. Eferen conjured flames by casting Wind of Fire, an intermediate class magic. She then let it run wild around Dekilleen, trapping him in the scorching currents so thick he could no longer be seen. She then added earth properties to the flame, dropping particles of coal that amplified the flames and generated a high concentration of oxygen inside. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr flammable dust and oxygen, resulting in a series of oxidation and combustion. Dust exploded. Boom! Beginning with a single blast, dozens of other eruptions occurred throughout the air. Boom, boom, bam. Her magic was destructive enough to fluster even Professor R'lin. Even its intensity and heat were far more than what the faculty member expected. Boo-woo-woo-um. Ephraim had mastered calling forth such deadly mixtures of magic. Combining three properties, she created a bombardment of magic that maximized the power of the most destructive element, fire. Ha! After using up her mana, Ephraim sighed and stared at her opponent's position, but only smoke coming from the stadium she nearly set ablaze filled her sight. Did he manage to escape? She didn't let her guard down, yet at the same time she found herself wondering if she had killed him. She wasn't worried about him, though. A cold wind cleared up the smoke, revealing a shell-like ball of fire beyond it. Da-da-da, da-da-da. Between the raging waves of flames, D'Killine's blue eyes radiated as he gazed at her apathetically, looking as if her magic couldn't even touch him. It was exactly as she expected. Her fires died down in a flash, extinguishing her incinerating magic completely. She couldn't even begin to understand how that was possible. Biting her lips, she released stray bullet bombs, which scattered like magic bullets all over the place endlessly. Do. However, all that came into D'Killine's range came to a halt and had her ownership over them seized. He then extinguished all of them without even using them. He promised not to retaliate after all. Ugh, D'Killine just stood there and stared at her, making her feel like he was just playing with a child. Since it's come to this, Ephraim cohered magic. But an error occurred in its materialization process, causing it to be dissolved with a spark instead of materializing. Ephraim quickly found out the reason behind it: D'Killine's mana interference. You have a habit with magic, he said, observing the patterns of her magic through his vision. It was almost impossible to interpret and dissolve magic in such a short time, since doing so severely used up mana. The bigger your movement is for magic, the more your habit becomes prominent. However, after experiencing the opponent's magic a few times, and if one were certain about their habit, their mana consumption would be reduced exponentially. Simply put, D'Killine's understanding had now fully unraveled Ephraim's magic, allowing him to instantly find its core circuit. High-ranking wizards always hide their habit. No, they don't even have one, D'Killine continued in a tone that sounded like he was talking to a failure. Ephraim kept trying to form magic, but her efforts were all for naught. Zei. The sounds of her short-circuiting attempts echoed non-stop. You won't be able to use magic in front of me. Ephraim clenched her teeth, giving up on materializing magic. However, she hadn't given up on the battle itself. She still had her last resort. Don't give him space or time. What if she focused on breaking through just one part of him and closed the distance between them? What if she released magic right in front of D'Killine? I'm confident he won't even have time to dissolve or interfere with my magic. Ephraim didn't become a wizard by graduating from the academy. Hence, she didn't let her body grow weak through atrophy. Physical training and drills were part of Ephraim's routine. Hoof! With her body sped up by acceleration, Ephraim charged and quickly reached D'Killine. As she was about to release her magic, Ephraim came face to face with his finger. It was coming closer and closer, but she couldn't dodge it in time. Bam! The pain she felt was immense. Ephraim was forced to step back while clutching her forehead and soon stumbled and fell to the ground. However, D'Killine's voice found its way into her ears. Looking up, she found him gazing at her while standing opposite to her. With a smile on his lips that was unfamiliar to her, his eyes looked more serene and satisfied than they had ever been. It wasn't bad. D'Killine gave her a compliment that was as high as his fondness of his new cane. Unable to understand what was happening, Ephraim just stared at his face while still on the floor. Did I just get his recognition? She fainted with that thought in her mind. Her friends soon came running and took her down the stadium. Next. Professor, the stadium was. Relin tried to point out the obvious, thinking that they should take a little break, but D'Killine repaired the place swiftly. His psychokinesis made earth levitate, and through ductility and transformation, tiles were made. The ones he made were even cleaner than the ones installed in the room before. It wasn't difficult to do, but the speed at which he did it, and his rhythm was amazing. That act alone displayed why he was the epitome of noble wizardry. Next, Lucia. The class went on afterward as if nothing happened. The earlier battle kept on replaying in the wizards' minds, however. They all looked at Ephraim, but they focused on D'Killine far more. They became more certain about the reason behind the head professor's fame and pride. He lifted a train using psychokinesis, after all. If Ephraim was an earthworm, D'Killine was a dragon. That was how big of a gap the two wizards had when it came to their caliber. The following Monday, the first day of the midterm exams. Is it like this then? Yes, that's it. After finishing her first test and taking a nap in the club room, Eferen opened her eyes to the sound of conversation. She raised her head like her body was stuck to the sofa. "Oh, I was so confused. Thanks. Don't worry about it. You can ask me anytime." She found Julia with some guy, a gentle and handsome senior. Were they flirting? Eferen wiped her drool and got up. "Oh, Iffy, you're awake. You know Iffy, right?" At Julia's question, he looked at her. "Of course, how can I not? She fought with Professor de Killeen. Drent, their senior, passed the promotion test last year and was in the same rank as a solda. His great appearance and abilities made him famous among the commoner wizards whom he didn't discriminate against. You're that girl, right?" "Oh, yes. I was asking him to look at the assignment de Killeen gave. Its deadline is in 5 days. "Huh, wait, 5 days?" Eferen, scratching her head, noticed her assignment on her desk, making her remember that she fell asleep while answering it. Wait. No way did he peek at it. Drent, seemingly reading her mind, smiled. "I didn't read it. It's not polite to, right?" "What? Oh, ha ha, ha ha ha, well, it's nothing like that." Eferen returned her assignment in her bag. "I can't be drooling like this." She only got 3-4 hours of sleep per day for almost the past 2 weeks, causing her to be a little out of herself. He smirked as he reached out his hand to her. "Should I check yours too, Eferen?" "What? Show it to me. I'll check it." Drent's reputation was well known. He was a hexagon wizard who had mastered 6 types of magic equally. Despite that, Eferen shook her head with a bitter smile anyway. "No, I'm fine." "Huh, no, it's okay. I already checked Julia's assignment." No, I didn't write it well enough to show it to anyone." Julia, who had been watching the two uncomfortably, interceded using time as an excuse. "Oh, it's almost 4 o'clock. Our next test is about to start. We'll get going now, but thank you, senior." "Huh, oh, okay. Enjoy." Tilda. The two went out of the club room. "Drent is handsome, isn't he?" Julia said while walking down the corridor. Eferen shook her head. "I don't think so." "What? Why not? He's nice to all women." "Ah, Tilda, that's true. He'll be attending a public hearing this time, though. Thesis defense?" "Yeah, thesis defenses were held about a week after the midterm exam. Senior students promoted from debutante to solda would present their magic theses to be evaluated by tower professors. To remain as wizards at the university tower, Eferen and Julia would inevitably undergo the same trial someday. Eferen muttered, "I'm so jealous. He's a year ahead of us, right?" "Yeah. Oh, Sylvia might be able to do it within half a year." "How so?" "She took a lot of classes. I think her only rest day is Sunday, which shows how crazy she is about magic." The tower elevator soon arrived. Both of them pressed the floors where they were taking their tests. Julia's was on the 4th floor, and Eferen's was on the 11th floor. Ding, arriving at the 4th floor, Julia waved and got off. "I'm going. Good luck on your exam, Iffy." "Yeah, you too. Good luck." Hwa. As she yawned, the door opened on the 6th floor, revealing a blonde wizard standing in front of her, Sylvia. Sylvia got into the elevator indifferently, resulting in the two standing side by side. Hesitantly, Eferen asked her a question. Did you do well in your exam?" Sylvia nodded. She had nothing more to say. Did she do well, or what? Eferen felt awkward standing so close to her, so she looked at the names of each floor instead. That was when she noticed it. 77th floor, Head Professor de Killeen's office/research lab. Ding. The door opened again, this time on the 10th floor. Eferen tried to bid her goodbye, but Sylvia rattled as she got out of the elevator. "Next time, don't mess with the professor. You're lucky you didn't die that day." Her voice sounded fatigued, but it remained cold. Ding. The elevator closed, and Eferen stared blankly at it. What's with her? Asterisk 77th floor, Head Professor's research lab. I was analyzing a research paper. After submitting the test questions, this was the only remaining work I had left at the tower. Then, the outline of the thesis, which was vague and distant, was slowly coming out. Its idea itself was outstanding. At first, it kept telling stories about wood, fire, charcoal, pencils, diamonds, and the like. But I finally realized its true point after studying it for a long time with the help of understanding. Its idea was related to carbon. The potential of the carbon element was so huge that if I succeeded in establishing it, I would be able to create a theological school about carbons. Of course, it didn't mean it would utilize the carbon itself. Rather, by combining its unique properties, namely, its almost infinite combination with allotrope, it would provide magic with immense flexibility and opened up a lot more possibilities. But it was hard for me to learn. The magic memorize and materialize created based on this thesis required talent in almost all attributes. Its magic consumption would be too high otherwise. Of course, the distinction between magic development and realistic acquisition was easy to point out. It was just like how theoretical physicists and experimental physicists were completely different in modern science. Linnell, who played a large part in the magic schools in this world, naturally had a certain amount of practical power, but he was not good at dealing with magic that he created along with his disciples. However, he was in the same position as Einstein, whom no one could accuse of not conducting experiments based on his theories himself. That insight is great and all, but in this world lacking in science, Ephrem's father, discovering that charcoal, pencils, and diamonds were actually under the same element, conceived the idea of using their properties for magic. Did he quit at the beginning of his research? The procedure he provided was less than half complete. It also had multiple errors and missing parts. Most of it was based on intuition, too, of course. Wizards' theses were usually 70% to 80% intuitive and 20% to 30% theoretical, considering that those numbers were enough to understand their research and to cast the magic they were analyzing. That aside, one wizard came to mind that suited the magic I was studying. Ephrem, a daring debutante from my last class with the ability to use all 4 major elements by using her bracelet as a catalyst. The more she did it, the deeper Ephrem's questions about her father grew, however. I took out the pendant that I had put in a drawer in the corner of the lab. It safely kept an image of Ephrem as a child. But why was her father's face cut out in it? Wasn't it strange to receive a photo like this? After staring at it for a few moments, I left the lab, went back to my office, and took out a book. As I was reading it, something caught my eye. I shifted my gaze towards it swiftly. I found a hawk staring at me while standing outside my office's window. As I stared back at it, it tilted its head as if it was looking at something, causing me to tilt my head a little as well out of wonderment. Brrrr. It soon flew away in a hurry, almost as if someone had scolded it. Does it have an owner? Its feathers seemed taken care of, and it looked neatly groomed. I closed the window curtains. The Red Garnet Adventure Team waited for a ship at Lucan, a Eucline-owned coastal city on the west part of the Empire. Is it that one? Gainsha pointed at a vessel on the other side. A child was supposed to arrive from the archipelago today. Yeah, only one, however. 2 of the kids' relatives were still at the archipelago. It's moving too slow. Aren't you just rushing too much? You've been talking back at me a lot lately. I'm not talking back. I'm just telling the truth. The ship arrived while they were quarreling, allowing the child to finally disembark from it. As soon as she saw her cute appearance, Gainsha waved at her as the wind began to breeze through her hair. Hey, over here. The kid smiled brightly upon noticing her red hair fluttering like wings. It's been a long time, Gainsha. She had met a lot of children at the archipelago. Among the 3 that had special talents, she was her favorite. She looked precious, her tiny fingers even more so. Leah Tilda, didn't you miss me? Leah, a child with black hair and brown eyes, wasn't only gifted but also mature for her age. She always seemed to know what she wanted to do and how to do it. Her actions alone were no longer that of a child's, but that exactly was what makes Gainsha pity her. Of course, I missed you, cuck. Gainsha hugged Leah tightly before she could finish her sentence. I missed you, Leah. You're hurting and suffocating me. This is child abuse, really? She simply couldn't help herself. Leah's face, sticking out of her arms like a bun, was just too cute for her to resist. Your birthday has already passed. You're not a child anymore according to imperial law. No, what? Hey, I said it hurts. Let me go, you idiot. She was so mature that her behavior only made her appear cuter. Let go of me already, let me go. Oh, sorry. Only then did Gaincha release her. Are you an actual idiot? The kid glared at her. Sorry. Shall we go? I'll buy you something delicious. What are you going to buy? Gaincha thought watching how much and how far this child would grow would become one of her most favorite hobbies in the future. Chapter 37. The chairman of Imperial University Tower's Board of Directors received interesting news from the private office. It was an order from Burkt regarding the red box. If this were a game, most people would have gambled 10 million or 100 million elnies that they would be commanded to begin the red box oppression. However, the result was quite the opposite, and Achillein's fierce contribution to that outcome made it all the more surprising. What is this? I know how you feel. At the chairman's office, 13 faculty members gathered, including Relin and Letran. The chairman often gave an audience to the professors at least once a month, the only person who had never stopped by for it being Achillein. I'm curious why you're all here today. Did you meet someone at Madoho? The professors just laughed at the chairman's question. There were many schools in this magical world, just like how there were multiple factions all over the continent. Relin and the rest belonged to an organization called Madoho. Achillein wasn't tied to any school. The Eucline family itself was no different from being a godfather of the magic world, after all. Luina attended Madoho this time. I've been talking to her for a while. One of the professors spoke up, causing the chairman to smile bitterly. Luina competed against Achillein for the head professor position, at least until she voluntarily resigned due to an unexpected incident. She was now the head professor of the Kingdom University Tower. Is she coming back to the Empire? Ha ha ha. Well, if you can guarantee her seat, she definitely will. If that happens, our tower will definitely greatly benefit from it. Weren't her achievements in the kingdom remarkable? On the other hand, Professor Achillein is a bit strange these days. He's even defending the red box. Based on his behavior at Burkt, Professor Achillein seems. The chairman smiled and gestured, knowing full well what the professor was trying to convey. All right. If Luina says she'll come, I'll take it into consideration. Well, let's end this meeting here for now. I have something to do today. Yes, Chairman. They were turned away positively, and the professors left the office with bright faces. HMMMMM. Deep in thought, with his chin resting on the back of her hand, the chairman pulled out some documents. Papers were flowing in since they were in the middle of an exam period. A lot of test questions, in particular, had reached her office. It wasn't his habit to rummage through them, but how did he make this problem? She was surprised by the exam Achillein prepared. She even felt proud of himself for being able to solve at least its last question. I don't think I can create something like this, even if I used the other exams as reference. She wasn't joking around. Its problems were good enough to be used for the Solda promotion test. However, the chairman was not naive enough to think that Achillein made the problems himself. HNNGG, he's hiding it well this time. Who would it be? She mumbled in a small voice and grinned. Well, who cares? It's rather fun. Wouldn't he be flustered if she asked him about the test questions? Professor Achillein would look pretty cute then. I'd have to tease you later. *** Wednesday. The examination day for the 5-credit class. Since this exam was as important as the first 3 combined, Eferen decided to go to the tower earlier than usual, immediately heading to the 30th floor, the entirety of which was reserved solely for their incoming test. She opened the door with the nameplate examination waiting room attached to it. Whoa, Eferen was startled. It was only 8 a.m., but more than 100 people were already gathered. Their silent chatter stopped. Maybe because of the recent events, all eyes were on Eferen. Eferen's nickname these days was the Thoughtless Commoner, although she wasn't a commoner. Eferen sat near Julia and the other club members. Iffy, did you just wake up? No, I didn't sleep. She could no longer remember how many cups of coffee she consumed throughout the night. But that was how exams usually affected students anyway. However, due to her nervousness and the caffeine in her body, she couldn't fall asleep. However, she was more faultless now than before. Iffy, do you want to look at my notes? I wrote down my discernment yesterday. Julia grinned. Okay, I'll show you mine too. The two exchanged notes, studying together until the clock struck 11 and Assistant Professor Allen came in. Good morning. I am Alan, the assistant professor. The midterm exam for understanding pure elemental magic will start without roll call. Alan read the paper he had in his hand. Beforehand, I'll be providing you with some information about it. First and foremost, it will have no time limit. The wizards were taken aback for a moment. Alan also covered his mouth and stared at what he was reading suspiciously as if he said something wrong. Rather, the test's deadline is next Sunday at midnight, which is a week after the tower's exam period. The wizards became even more dumbfounded. It was currently Wednesday. If the deadline was at midnight next Sunday, that meant that they had 10 days to take the test. While Ephraim was trying to make sense of such puzzling information, Alan continued talking. Of course, you can take other exams during that time. You can eat outside, sleep at home, wash up, go play to relieve your stress. However, the test paper itself can't be taken outside. She found it strange. No, it was an interesting method. Additionally, each person will be given a private room as their test site. You can even sleep inside it. However, you must bring your own pillow and blanket. Bringing and eating food inside it is allowed. The same goes for bringing and reading books and theses. Moreover, this test allows open notes. Ephraim's eyebrows began to furrow in doubt. If the test was expected to last 10 days, despite allowing them to look at their notes, how difficult could it be? No. Could such a level of difficulty even be possible? Lastly, Head Professor de Culleen left a few words of motivation. Alan cleared his throat and imitated de Culleen. If ever someone gets a perfect score, I'll write a letter of recommendation as the head professor. Letter of recommendation. All the wizard's eyes widened at those words. He was a wizard above monarch. Among the 11 wizard ranks, he was at the 4th. No, maybe even at the 1st. Regardless, the head professor's letter of recommendation was extremely valuable. This would be a bit of an exaggeration, but it essentially meant that they automatically passed the Solda promotion test apart from its interview. The wizard's enthusiasm burned up even though the test was very strange. Of course, they had already expected Sylvia to claim first place with an overwhelming lead. But the letter of recommendation wasn't just for one person, but for everyone who got a perfect score. It was a good chance for late bloomers to rise and make a name for themselves. I will now assign each of you an exam room. Please stand up and follow me, starting from the front row. 15 people in the front row of the waiting room got up first. He repeated that same procedure 10 times. Sylvia was assigned to room number 23, and Ephraim and the other club members were assigned to room number 73-78. Good luck, Iffy. Fight? Yes, you too. Knowing that she had a lot of time made her anxiety die down. While they were exchanging encouragement, Alan shouted, "Okay. Everybody go in." Ephraim took a deep breath and went inside. The room was a little wider than the one-person room in the dormitory. It had a desk, a chair, and a clock. On top of the desk was the test paper. Ephraim immediately sat on the chair and looked at number 1. Calculate the circuit of the following technique. She was certain it was a theoretical question. Ephraim took out her pencil. At the same time, she released mana through her fingers. Ephraim calculated the theory by using intuition, recreating the circuit with her mana as she computed. Woo. She solved it in an hour. Ephraim instilled the proper amount of mana on the answer column before turning the page. 2. Inferring from the key circuit of the following technique, describe its flow of mana. Question number 2 was a little difficult, but it was still theoretical, as expected. She spent 3 to 4 hours solving it, but the real problem came after that. 3. The following circuit is part of a specific magic. Deduce the above formula through the following conditions, express the magic, and implant it to the test paper. Ephraim thought about how to handle it best, assuming it would be easy at first. However, she couldn't develop a solution for it no matter how long she spent pondering about it. I'm sleepy. Ephraim eventually put her pen down and laid on the floor. She closed her eyes in this rigid place to take a little break, and before she knew it, a day had passed. Asterisk. The 4th day of the Understanding Pure Elemental Magic exam. The night cadets who left for their exams on Saturday had returned, and most of the tests of the regular undergraduates were coming to an end. However, the tower itself was still hot and bustling. Right now, not only the University Tower wizards, but also the Outer Kingdom Tower, cadets, and undergraduates were paying attention to it. The reason was, of course, Killian's marathon exam, which apparently was hard enough to warrant having an entire week or two dedicated to challenging it. However, the test this time was promoted by the chairman herself. Yes, the exam is still ongoing on the 30th floor. Thanks to that, many came to gather news materials, and the chairman came forward to respond to their queries. What is its level of difficulty? Nigh impossible, but I felt really happy after I solved it. The students will feel enlightened once they've finished it. It's worth trying. Do you intend to publicize the test questions afterward? I think you should ask Professor Killian about that. In my opinion, even the Isle of Wizards' wealth would want to pay for it too. All sorts of people surrounded the tower. Having finished their exams, the undergraduates and cadets came to check the commotion out as well before training for the season of festivities and MT of the entire university, which would begin in 2 weeks. By any chance, can we get an interview? Are you a debutante? Please wait. The reporters grabbed the wizards and asked for an interview. Most of them refused, but Efren agreed in exchange for 4 cups of coffee and 3 pieces of bread. No one's given up on the test yet, probably. What do you think is the reason? I'm not sure. Efren drank the coffee without answering properly. The truth was she knew all too well the reason why they didn't give up. This exam was an extension of his class. Just like Killian's somehow unfriendly yet friendly lectures, the test was leading them to growth. Review everything you've learned from Killian as you solve the problem. Use it arbitrarily and comprehend the application. What do you think of the wizards discussing the test among themselves and leaking out the answers to each other? Efren almost spat out coffee at the reporter's naive question. Smirking, she shook her head. That's not possible. Wizards are very individualistic, and it would be too obvious if we did that. Magic and mana have their own characteristics after all. Think of them as fingerprints. Aha. 10 minutes have passed, right? I'll be going now. The promised interview duration had ended. Efren got up from her seat with 3 cups of coffee and 2 pieces of bread remaining, ***, early Monday morning. Sylvia woke up in the test room and warmed up her food with magic. Nom nom. She ate breakfast as she looked at the test paper. 7. When the magic with the above core circuit satisfies the following 4 conditions, infer the whole formula and implement the magic. She was thinking about manipulating the mana according to the conditions in question number 7. Ugh. She failed to solve it yesterday, despite attempting to find the right answer all day, and since she still couldn't come up with an answer for it, she decided to take a different test for now. Sylvia came out of her test room and approached the assistant professor in front of the elevator. Are you giving up or going out? Alan asked. I'm going out to take another test. Okay, Miss Sylvia. Good luck. Sylvia then took a refinement test outside the tower at the Theo Hall. ***, finishing the 2-hour exam in 20 minutes. Sylvia made her way back to her test room, finding the attendants of the mansion waiting near the tower to give her packed lunch and dinner. Good luck, Lady Sylvia. I know you'll be able to solve all of the questions. Don't give up. You're going to be the greatest wizard to ever exist, so I know you'll be able to do it. Sylvia returned to her room after receiving their support. It was strangely burdensome. She didn't feel this much pressure during the entrance exam. The possibility that she couldn't solve it was growing in one corner of her mind, but she refused to acknowledge it. Don't be impatient. Reminding herself of the professor's words, she steeled her mind. Room #23 Sylvia's test room had all the things she needed. She made a bed using her magic and brought blankets and pillows. She also had books and research papers to serve as references. It had become a capsule where she cycled between eating, sleeping, and solving the test. She sat behind her desk and challenged question #7 again. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. 4 hours. She put her heart and soul into it as the time passed. It wasn't only because of the level of difficulty of the exam. Its questions were indeed difficult, but Sylvia would have already told her father if it was needlessly so. calling it a garbage exam that wasn't worth spending 10 days on and its creator a trashy professor. But this exam was nothing like that. Each problem presented new possibilities and directions, induced unexpected transformations, shocking utilization and application out of her, and promoted flexible thinking inherent in the problem itself. Regardless, it was no different from participating in a boot camp. Its level of difficulty also greatly increased starting from the 6th question. The wizards believed that they would rise to an entirely different level if they got a perfect score. The letter of recommendation was just an unexpected bonus. 10 hours, 11 hours, 12 hours. 12 hours today and 18 hours yesterday. After a total of 30 hours of hard work, she finally solved number 7. Sylvia manifested the circuit through magic, which rose in the air in the shape of a sphere. It looked like a blazing star that combined fire and earth, wind and water, causing a brilliance so bright it reached even the edges of her room. Sylvia was briefly mesmerized by its beauty, but soon afterward, she sighed as she looked at the clock. 6 p.m. It was time to take another test. After combing her hair, she walked out of the tower. There were still many people at the main entrance, so she went around the back where she ran into someone. "Oh, Sylvia? Eferen. Are you going to take another test?" Eferen asked. Sylvia walked without bothering to answer, but at some point they both asked the same question. "At what number are you?" Their words overlapped. Sylvia grew silent, shrugging. Eferen spoke first. "I'm currently solving number 7, Sylvia answered honestly. "Number 8. "What? You already solved all of them?" Eferen's eyes widened out of envy. "Solving? Ah, you're fast. I'm stuck at number 7. Eferen smiled bitterly as she scratched the back of her neck, but Sylvia walked past her without saying much. However, she felt twisted deep down. If she was already answering number 7, then Eferen was much faster than she expected. There was only one problem separating them apart. Is she lying? Or am I just too slow? Sylvia resented her for reasons she couldn't quite fathom. The problem was time. The false tests were taking too much of it, preventing her from spending all of it on the real tests. Eferen, who went separate ways with Sylvia, reached the cafe. She felt like she had used up almost 1,000 elnis on coffee alone during the exam period. She scanned the interior for any reporter. For her, the formula was reporter equals interview equals free coffee and bread. None. Tusk. She was left with no other choice but to buy coffee and bread with her own money. Sylvia's words came to mind as she sat down. Number 8. I've been stuck on number 7 for the past 2 days. During those 48 hours, she felt as if she caught an illness. She even cried out that she would quit out of sheer rage, but she calmed down and felt a lot better after finding a hint to the problem's solution. The happiness that moment brought was incomparable to anything she ever felt before. Phew. Eferen conjured mana at her fingertips and thought about number 7 while drinking coffee and chewing on bread. Out of the blue, she wondered about what Tekulin was doing. I will solve it even if I have to come after you. Eferen walked out of the establishment as soon as she finished eating and went back to the tower. Looking up at the sky, she found a star shining so bright it looked like a marshmallow floating amid the vast darkness of the universe. Eferen's eyes widened, her pupils reflecting the celestial object. Enlightenment spread down her spine. She rushed straight back to her test room and began to release mana. It's working. It's definitely working. This better be it. The star in the night sky served as her inspiration. She calculated the circuit under the condition recorded on the test paper to identify the solution, created an estimation using the formula that the solution used as its basis, and implemented the magic that met the conditions of the problem. Have I solved it? She conjured an artificial star by gathering the fire, wind, earth, and water attributes. The pure and gentle cohesion made Eferen tear up without even realizing it. Oh, come on! For 30 minutes, Eferen's tears rolled down her cheek ceaselessly. Sniff, sniff. Eferen wiped her drenched eyelashes and turned to the next page. The moment she saw number 8, the last question, and its magical circuits and conditions that filled half the page. Ah no, this crazy. She almost fainted. Chapter 38. The wizards began to give up a week after the test began, their progress distinctly divided by their ranks. The lower ranks gave up at numbers 1 to 4, while the middle ranks stopped at number 5. The higher ranks were divided into those who could barely complete number 6, and those who had enough wits and tenacity to challenge number 7. The highest ranks were divided by the percentage of number 7 that they solved, from answering barely more than half to providing a complete solution. No one could even talk about number 8. Regardless, experiencing the test alone became a feat, a medal of sorts for the students. It was a privilege that only 150 out of the 300 new wizards could enjoy. Not only the senior wizards, but even the professors were asking about the test. On Saturday noon, the day the exams at the university tower were dated to end, Sylvia immersed herself in question number 8, forgetting the passage of time. Her disheveled hair and bloodshot eyes were completely disparate from her usual neat appearance. Nevertheless, she ceaselessly released mana. She had spent nearly 5 days on the final problem alone, and through it all, she had already written more than 7 magic circles. Due to the numerous magic involved with the problem, she decided to deduce them piece by piece and translate them into the answer sheet. She had conjured multiple magic circles already, but she still had no idea how many more were left. She finally understood the need for the gigantic answer sheets. While writing the 8th magic circle, she felt a pain in her head and eyes. Acting swiftly, Sylvia quickly stopped the blood that was about to fall from her nose, knowing full well it might cause a problem if they dripped onto her papers. Leaving the test room and creating a blood trail behind her, she noticed her reflection on the corridor's window. It was clear she had left herself unattended and unaccounted for. She might even die at this rate. I need to take a short break. Sylvia lightly tidied up her appearance using cleanse as she headed for the elevator, finding the person she had seen for 10 days straight seemingly dozing off. "Excuse me." "Oh, Miss Sylvia, are you going out?" "Yes." "Okay, you may proceed." She got on the elevator and came out of the tower. Fortunately, the surroundings were quiet. Sylvia walked to a nearby park, sat on one of its benches, and stared at the garden right in front of her. It was nothing out of the ordinary. It had grass, flowers, and trees stemming from the ground. Above the greenery shone the sun, providing them with the light that they need for photosynthesis. The garden, just like question number 8, was the result of independent elements connecting to become one unit. Hence, she thought creating and casting powerful advanced magic was no different from gardening. Her father once told her that even if thousands or tens of thousands of solder-ranked wizards gathered, they still wouldn't be able to manifest great magic, and professor-level wizards could only do it when 30 of them gathered. The great wizard could cast it by himself, however. That was why only one great wizard existed in the past 60 years. Even though he was now over 100 years old, he could still break up question number 8 with just a glance. Sylvia closed her eyes for a moment and opened them after, finding the sun's position had changed quite heavily. She was confused at first, but soon jumped up in shock upon understanding the phenomenon. She accidentally fell asleep. Sylvia rushed back to the tower and checked the clock. 4 p.m. There were only 31 hours and 59 minutes left until Sunday midnight. She sat in her chair again, scribbling with her wizard-exclusive pen and mana in an attempt to answer a test question that was interconnected like several cogwheels. Sylvia calmly dismantled the connection and analyzed each of them individually. Without knowing how the magic circles took such forms, she couldn't even expect to find any hints, let alone answers. Hence, she focused heavily on the task at hand. Tick-tock, tick-tock, the clock ticked as if it were attached to herself. Meanwhile, she constantly consumed her mana, which surprisingly reached tens of thousands, to imbue her answers into the answer sheet until finally, 11. A total of 11 completed answer sheets. She put them down on the floor, carefully examining their structure's order and combination. The magic circles imprinted on the paper perfectly intertwined from the 1st to the 11th's core. Sylvia took a deep breath. She imbued her 150 hours' worth of effort and mana into this magic. Her own soul even resonated with the magic circles on the answer sheet. Wu Wang, with her heart trembling, 80% of her mana was instantly consumed, and her test room soon completely changed. The magic that materialized extended over the walls and ceiling, creating an unfamiliar landscape that covered her room's entire space as it was separated from the rest of the world. Cypress trees and wheat fields stretched across the lands, and clear winds and intense starlight enveloped the skies. Vegetable gardens littered the hills along with windmills, while acres upon acres of sunflowers beautifully decorated the vicinity of a simple village. Deucalion's genius materialized this space as a dedication to the young wizards who could solve all 11 techniques. Sylvia found herself mesmerized by the painting-like scenery filled with rich and dazzling colors. It was an art that made the beholder tremble stronger the more they were dazzled by it. "Sylvia." A voice flowed with the wind. Turning her gaze to where it came from, her eyes widened. Amid the mystifying harmony of magic and art was Deucalion. He wore his usual attire, which was perfect enough to make her wonder if it was magical. "Congratulations," he said, locking his eyes with hers. Kim Woo-jin's soul had a strong desire for art at the very least. It was a passion that he couldn't abandon even if the world and reality themselves swept him away. A dream that guy helped keep. Although he couldn't reach his desired goal due to his lack of talent, eventually forcing him to push his love for the craft to the corner. Kim Woo-jin's memories of those days were combined with Deucalion's characteristic aesthetic sense. Having gained the artistic talent he desired, he ended up imitating the famous paintings that remained in his head, creating them in a world that wasn't Earth through illusory magic. The starry night, the road with cypress trees and stars, the sunflower, vegetable garden in Montmartre Hill. The maker of those paintings struggled with endless pain and sorrow. In the end, he was just a fleeting stranger who wasn't acknowledged in his lifetime. But his affliction between death and madness allowed the most primitive beauty to bloom inside him. The story of the painter named Vincent van Gogh was told through an entrancing and beautiful canvas that glowed brighter than his life ever did. Sylvia softly closed her eyes, the scene remaining in her vision even when she did, much like the warmth she felt on her skin. It was all magic. Even the colors were made of elements. The unfamiliar fields seemed to be moving, swaying along with the winds, causing tremors, which soon turned into an echo to occur within her soul as she stood there amid it all. After a brief silence, she heard his voice once more. "Thanks." Deucalion uttered a word that caught her off guard. She didn't know what he was grateful for, but he sounded sincere. Good work. Deucalion couldn't reproduce it with his own magic, but he wanted to see it with his own eyes at least once. That was why he was grateful to Sylvia. He didn't know if she understood him, but fortunately, she nodded as if she did in her own way. Sylvia turned around again and left her body to the magical landscape, enjoying its light, breeze, scent, vibrant colors, and calming movements. Not long after, she felt warmth flowing down her cheek. A single teardrop fell, the one that she had kept inside her since her mother's death. Deucalion had already left by the time she turned around after wiping it away. She was hoping to return his thanks. ***, knock, knock. Alan opened the door of a test room filled with the scent of sweet coffee, finding Ephraim inside. It made him feel dizzy. Her answer sheets, imbued with multiple magic circles, were sprawled on the ground. It was an approach close to Sylvia's, but it resulted in failure in the end. "Debutante Ephraim, time is up." Ephraim flinched. Looking up, she saw Alan. "Ah, is that so?" She scratched the back of her head and smiled bitterly. "That's too bad." Alan just smiled in return. "By the way, assistant professor, this test question?" Ephraim hesitated, sounding embarrassed and regretful. "Ah, yes, I'll give it to you. Professor Deucalion told me to do so. He'll send a new set of test papers along with a magic vault. However, we will need a drop of your blood." There were a total of 4 people who solved the problems up to number 7, but there were only 2 who filled it in 11 days. Ephraim was one of them. Hence, she deserved to be rewarded. "Phew, thank you so much." She got up with a sigh of relief, then collected blood. Afterward, she took all of her belongings with her, including her writing instruments and clothes, as she left the test room. Alan saw her off to the elevator at the tower. "You've done well, Miss Ephraim." Thank you, Assistant Professor Allen, for the test paper as well. Efren bowed so deep the bag she was carrying on her back fell on the top of her head and came up. He. It's okay, Allen laughed. The test paper will arrive in 3 days. Feel free to solve it any time by then. I'll also enclose 10 magic answer sheets with it. Ah, really, thank you so much. However, don't bury yourself in it. Ding. The elevator arrived just in time. What you didn't learn now, what you haven't realized, you will sooner or later. The day will come when you'll be able to solve it all. Trying to solve it every day might prove too hard, so I suggest limiting yourself to once a week. Allen looked like he didn't know what he was talking about, but Efren nodded and smiled brightly, understanding the gist of what he meant. Her smiling face looked bright. Yes, I'll try to solve it at least once a week. Okay. Allen watched her with envious eyes for some reason. Take care. Efren waved to the assistant professor until the elevator door closed. However, ding, when the door closed, her smile quickly disappeared. Blood flowed from her molars after biting them all day that they almost fell out. Ha! She buried herself in the corner of the elevator. She shook her shoulder like that and punched the wall of the elevator. Ding! Ugh! She thought the elevator was broken, but its doors opened normally. It was already midnight, but many wizards took the elevator from the 25th floor anyway. It was the Solda wizards who were under the professors. No, they were more like slaves than wizards. Ding! The elevator stopped again on the 21st floor. Ding! It did so once more, this time on the 19th floor. Ding! 12th floor, ding! 5th. By then, the elevator was already filled with approximately 30 wizards. Wow, when will we be allowed to sleep? Wait, don't push. There's someone in the corner. Grading is crazy. Arg, don't push. If we don't do all this, we'll get another complaint, though. Save me. Ugh, if we do, the professor will scold us again, saying, why do you never consider my image? Ding! Efren arrived on the ground floor after almost getting squashed by people. Who? She then left the tower feeling dizzy, making her think she had become anemic. Squinting, she trudged forward, but she couldn't put strength into her legs. They stiffened up just as she was about to reach the exit. Unable to walk any further, she was left with no other choice but to stand still and hope her legs wouldn't give up. Oh, it's iffy. Right in front of her were the members of the club she founded in a moment of bewilderment. Efren couldn't handle the moment. Her cheeks swelled up like meat buns. It felt like a dam she had been holding together had burst. Iffy, don't cry. Let's eat. Rohawk boar is being prepared in our restaurant. Rohawk! Her friends approached her first, who was standing vacantly, then they walked out together. I won't give you any if you cry. I'm not crying. When did I cry? Darkness fell on the usually bright palace of the imperial family. The emperor changed into a black and white attire as the royal palace gates were tightly closed. At the sides of the carpet at the center, which only the emperor could walk on, the imperial knights, ministers, grand officers, and government officials knelt. Krebaim sat on the throne, but he couldn't be seen without a veil. He wished to have a swift passing. Silence permeated the throne hall, but it wasn't silent enough to make his breathing hearable by his subjects. The subjects and the knights managed to hold back their tears, but the sounds of their whimpers leaked. The emperor wouldn't see the end of today. Soon enough, his body would be put inside a simple wooden coffin, as he willed. The palace gates wouldn't be opened for 3 days upon his death, and after 9 days, the enthronement would be held. The heads of the families would gather as the representatives of the sons and daughters of the kingdoms the empire ruled over. The emperor's death wasn't far off. Safian Ekater August von Yigas Jifreen, the first in line to the throne, was pondering in her inner chambers. Your Highness. Safian's knight, Charon, called out to her. She set her gaze upon him, her crimson pupils sinking languidly between her narrowed eyelids. Shouldn't you call me Your Majesty now? Your Majesty has not died yet. Safian burst into a smirk. No, it's already been more than 6 months. Charon pulled out documents and handed them to her. This month's homework. Leave it. It's homework. You always only carry your load. So frustrating. Please solve it. This exam's popular these days. Safian, who was sure to succeed the throne, had a talent in all fields. Holding a sword, she could ascend to Valhalla. Becoming a sage wouldn't be far-fetched either if she equipped herself with books. Naturally, if she decided to study magic, she could challenge the great wizard himself for his title. The problem was her laziness. Already past the age of 20, Safian showed no enthusiasm in any field. Even so, she had no gaps. She could easily grasp and cope with any situation. Devoid of any emotion when making decisions, she prevented herself from making any rash and hasty judgment. Safian made it a point to separate her personal and professional life. Needless to say, she already had the qualities of an emperor set to become far superior in all fields than Krebame. Safian looked at the papers given by Charon, so it's magic. Yes, she then saw the author of the exam. Dekulien von Grahan-Uklein. You know him, of course. He's the one who defended the red box at Berkt, making the entire conference feel uncomfortable. What is even going on in that guy's mind? Why is he suddenly defending the red box? He's never been known to have a good reputation in the first place. Charon smiled bitterly. She threw away the document without saying a word. You should still read it, though. Why? It was auctioned at the floating island, with its worth reaching 30,000 elnis. Why? It was sold in limited quantities. Even Lord Geoer and even Lord Sopier have read it. Why? Do whatever you want with it, then. Why? She laughed lowly. I'll read it later. Did you give one to Credo, too? Lord Credo participated in the auction himself. He's doing his best on useless things. Credo, the second in line to the throne, was her little brother. He was a Lumia-ranked wizard who had an affinity for magic. Back to the topic, Charon. What do you think I should do with the red box when I ascend the throne? The knight didn't reply to Safian's question, causing her to twist her lips. You always say knights do not involve themselves with politics. It's knights don't talk much. That's the same thing. You only shut up when the conversation's about politics. If you're going to do that, you shouldn't have spoken at all in the first place. You'd still refuse to talk about it even if you got a knife pressed against your throat. Charon looked at Safian. There was always a light that transcended the Highness' pupils. Most people called it the talent and pride she was born with, but it was just a rotten and frozen gaze for Charon, who had been with her since she was 13. Duung, the drum of the palace rang. Charon bit his lips softly. Your Highness, we have to go now. Yeah. Safian got up from her seat and walked more confidently and majestically than anyone else, which evidenced that she had always been naturally enveloped by dignity and majesty since she was born to the royal family. Charon, her knight, followed her powerful steps. Chapter 39. The Isle of Wizards' Wealth was a floating island 1,500 meters perpetually above the sky. It housed a community of magic and magical engineering. It was the home of many bright minds that led magical research, making it not that huge of an exaggeration to say that the Isle of Wizards' Wealth produced all magic on the ground. Additionally, it was an independent zone where a wizard could express their individualism to the extreme. Aside from rare exceptions, only wizards were allowed to enter. Moreover, those ranked below monarch were required to buy entrance tickets, which cost 1,000 elnis. More than half of its population worked at the periphery of the Medjisen, located at the center of the island. Simply put, Medjisen was an ark with magic and knowledge so vast it would allow humanity to rebuild civilization within a century, even if the continent itself was destroyed. The makers of the floating island were, in a way, fanatics, considering they tried to record and collect all the magic in the world, and even created an institution with the most positive disposition for it. One of the highest honors that exceptionally talented wizards could ever seek and attain was engraving the magic they created on the cell, the highest floor of the Medjisen. At this moment, an auction was ongoing at the Medjisen's VIP academic auction house. Currently, a total of 1,205 people have bid 35,000 elnis. Hence, we will start the re-auction at 36,000 elnis. The Isle of Wizards' Wealth's auction didn't sell goods or treasures. Rather, they presented documents, and among them was the Understanding Pure Elemental Magic 1 to 8, the questionnaire for one of the midterm exams at the Imperial University Tower. We will start the re-auction at 37,000 elnis. The number of wizards who participated in it, including those from far-away lands, easily reached 10,000, but the hall was extremely calm. There was no unnecessary chatter, screaming, politics, and the like. There was only the sound of writing so faint that it seemed as if even the pen was whispering. I see. 40,000 elnes and exactly 1,000 people. The final result of the auction is 40 million elnes. The exam that Deucalion made drew the attention of the wizards at the floating island due to its level of competence and difficulty, as well as its artistic reward given upon answering all 8 questions correctly. To be fair, however, it wouldn't have been a viable product to sell in any other place. We will be distributing the test papers after drawing blood from each person. Through that procedure, the auctioneer would be able to ascertain that only the buyer themselves could solve the paper. It was a simple but efficient security mechanism, and it was the foundation of the magical rights system. In their lightly populated wizard community, that system was strictly implemented even in the den of law-breaking wizards. Their protection only lasted at least a month to 15 years at most, however. Naturally, the higher the class of magic and documents, the longer their protection period lasted. In that regard, Deucalion's test was highly regarded, gaining 3 years of protection. We now adjourn this auction. The event ended quietly. Credo, the second in line to the throne, remained in his seat until the end. He then stood up satisfactorily and looked at the list of the successful bidders. "Oh ho, I can see the names of some addicts. Is it that famous?" he asked Fassbender, the knight beside him. He wasn't a wizard, but he was able to enter the floating island as a royal escort. According to what I've heard lately, yes. Adrian also released a statement about it. After such a long time, Deucalion, reputed for being a genius in technique interpretation, has shown us his talent yet again through his exam's last question. Number 8, problem itself was already a piece of art. Those were the chairman's words. Even Roxas, an addict who evaluated and solved the exam's problems in advance, spoke very highly of it. The addicts, who resided on the 10th floor of the Medjisen, were obsessed with all things magic-related. They evaluated the value of magical products and creations, investigated and managed the performance of wizards around the world, and observed one of the most important trials to ever exist, the promotion tests. Really? If so, then it must be interesting. Credo grinned and moved to the room of successful bidders. He accepted the blood draw the wizard's staff demanded, even though the royal family often rejected such notions. The question is, can I solve this? Of course, your magical talent is far superior to some measly test. Still, it's a midterm exam paper. I didn't learn pure elements from Deucalion. You'll do fine. Only one person got a perfect score among the 150 examinees. Well, it doesn't matter if I solve it or not. He didn't care about the outcome. New problems were always welcome. No matter how hard it was, if it were fun to solve and could grant him magical enlightenment, then it would be satisfactory enough. I have to go and solve this. Fassbender, prepare an answer sheet. You mean right now? Fassbender hesitated for a moment upon hearing his words. He simply smirked and nodded. I know this isn't the right place and time, but it doesn't matter. At this point, this is tradition. Also, since I met him once last month, I should send him a letter. The exam paper was prepared just in time. Credo accepted the thick bundle of paper and smelled it. They always smell good. At that moment, a tall, attractive man appeared on the other side of the hallway. He was clearly approaching Credo, and Fassbender instinctively blocked his way. Deucalion von Grahan-Uklein. His body seemed far more forged than most knights. That was made even more evident by the way his suit outlined his figure. He looked at Credo. It's a great honor to have the prince himself purchase a creation of mine despite its faults and flaws. I have no doubt you'd be able to solve it without any difficulties, Your Highness. All I can hope for is that it helps you in the future in some way. His etiquette, courtesy, and manners were perfect. He revered the royal family with sincerity without degrading himself, and he did so while overflowing with grace. As shown by his behavior, Deucalion acted differently around descendants of the emperor. Credo shook his head, momentarily flustered. Why, you're not a citizen of the floating island. Regardless, you're still from the royal family. Dekilline replied with a soft smile. Credo blinked. Is that so? Yes. Aha, right. I'll try solving this. Thank you. Dekilline nodded, then left. I think he's a pretty good professor despite the rumors, Credo mumbled as he watched his back retreat further down the hallway. Don't blindly trust people based on how they present themselves. Fassbender replied. He knew about the past between Julie and Dekilline, but decided to keep quiet. Returning to the tower after the auction, I sat in my office and checked the payment I received. 40 million Elnes revenue. It was much more than I expected. It was thanks to Uriel, who advised me to limit the number of exam copies I was selling to retain its premium aura, instead of releasing more quantities to earn more. There was no tax and commission at a wizard's auction. As expected, man of great wealth's ability didn't lie, but it was too early for me to celebrate. I grabbed a newspaper, the Journal, the largest media outlet in the empire, in the corner of my office, and read today's breaking news. 18th Emperor, Krebame Badio Judra von Yigas Jifreen, dies. It was a huge turning point. After 3 days, the palace's gates would open, and I might be able to visit it once. 9 more days after that, the succession ceremony would follow. After that, a lot of swift and gigantic changes would occur. According to the game's story progression, a named would soon appear that I had to save. An establishment that I had to acquire would soon be available as well. There would also be huge and small events that would emerge as the Empire's laws were revised. I would leave Uriel to take care of said establishment and laws, so I could focus on saving the named known as Maho, the princess of the kingdom, with a separate story proportionate to the main quest. She was currently staying in the system, using studying abroad as an excuse. However, at the same time as the next emperor's rise to the throne, her death event would be triggered. When I tested the game with a knight character, I was sure an acquaintance would cause it. I didn't want her to die. She had sentimental value for me since I personally designed and modeled her character. She was a good-natured named that would grant me great strength in the future. I was also curious. Would Charlotte and the other knights who accompanied us in the game at the time be the same in reality? Knock, knock. I opened the door using psychokinesis, unsurprisingly finding Alan outside of it. Professor, an invitation for a lecture came? Alan seemed excited for some reason. I wondered why he was so giddy and fired up about a mere lecture, but I soon got the answer to it. Holding a lecture at the Isle of Wizards' Wealth. Yes. They would like you to give a lecture about the exam questions you created in about a week or so. They would pay me 1 million Elnes for it. That was 1 billion in Korean won. Of course, that was but spare change compared to the 40 million Elnes I recently earned. However, Alan's expression was enough evidence for anyone to realize that it was a huge honor for wizards. It was an achievement in itself. Event quest, Floating Islands lecture. Mana plus 30. My heart was pounding because of Dekilline's personality, and even the system was urging me to do it. Event quests like this sometimes gave rewards in the form of additional mana or something similar. It was called stat reward, and it usually differed depending on the location. The Isle of Wizards' Wealth provided mana, the Adventurers' Guild gave stamina, and the Knight Order awarded the quest taker with smaller amounts of both. Tell them I'll positively consider it. It's just plus 30 mana, but it was much better than nothing. Yes, Alan answered energetically. Many things happened after the death of the Emperor. The death penalty was shut down, a short-term drinking ban was enforced, and the entire educational institution was closed. Festivals and parties were postponed, and gambling dens and the thieves' guilds were momentarily spared. A dead and desolate empire, in particular in the pitiful separate building of the royal palace Princess Maho's escort, Charlotte, was in anguish. "What's wrong with your face, Charles?" the beautiful jade-green-haired princess asked. While enjoying tea on the balcony, she smiled at Charlotte. "Princess, you shouldn't be so worried. I also know about the situation Tilda. If my eldest brother loses, his subjects will try to use me, right? If my second brother loses, then his subjects will do the same." Maho had unique brothers. One was second in line to the throne, and the other was third in line to the Riok kingdom. When they first came to study in the empire, they were fifth in line to the succession of the throne, but they fought and rose to their current positions. You'd rather fight the two to the death instead of letting that happen. That's what you're thinking, right? I know Tilda, unlike the empire, which the emperor's successor would easily inherit, the Riok kingdom was forged with blood and iron. Close to being a hostage in her own country, she volunteered to study abroad. The truth was that the empire was the safest place for her. But now that the emperor was dead, she could no longer stay in this foreign land. Right now, Sofian also didn't want a hostage in disguise. Therefore, she had to go back home immediately after showing her face at the enthronement. "The principality's response to the letter that you sent them has arrived," Charlotte replied. To Maho, her hometown was her limbs. Charlotte intended to entrust her to them, considering she was almost killed when she went to the Riok kingdom. "Really? What did my grandfather say? It's possible, of course. They permitted it?" "Naturally. However, they would inevitably be attacked on the way. They obviously couldn't bring soldiers to the Empire's land. However, at the border, a large number of knights would probably be waiting for them. Then, you can think of this as a trip, Tilda. That's great, Tilda." Maho smiled brightly, to which Charlotte replied with a smile of her own, one far more bitter. "I'm looking for as many escorts as possible. I'm thinking about calling knights, adventurers, and, of course, wizards from the tower. But we don't have money. Don't worry. The princess only had 3 escort knights, but a large sum of money was prepared for days like this." She rummaged through her drawers. "I have a little bit of money, too. I saved up my allowance, and I also have a lot of jewels." "No, it's fine." "How so? Don't we need a lot of money for this trip to be perfect?" She was right. "Take it." Maho gave her entire fortune that she had saved up to Charlotte, who remained speechless. Not long after, she left the room with the money in her pocket. "Cug!" Her tears fell as soon as she closed the door. Walking down the hallway, she looked out the window. The freshness of summer was spreading throughout the whole world. It's already summer, but the kingdom is in an endless winter. Charlotte exited the building and walked out of the palace. Will there even be adventurers good enough to protect her? If she combined Maho's and her entire fortune, the total would reach about 10 million elnies, which was enough to hire adventurers to be Maho's escorts. She mentioned the knights and the tower to reassure the princess, but the knights wouldn't involve themselves in political affairs. The tower was painful to speak of. While she was walking and thinking to herself, she saw someone she had seen at the Imperial University. Dekulin, the head of the Ukline family. He came to pay his respects to the deceased emperor 4 days ago. Of course, the heads of the families weren't allowed to go near the wooden coffin where the emperor was enshrined. Only the empress and Sofian, the first in line to the throne, could stand beside it. Regardless, the eulogies were courteous. It was the family head's moral duty. Even if they couldn't see him, they had to at least cope with it to show their loyalty to the throne. It's been a while. Charlotte just wanted to get past him quietly, but Dekulin called out to her. She looked at him with slight discomfort. Dekulin, who looked welcoming for some reason, muttered, "You look the same as before." "The same as before? You mean during college?" "Ah, that's right. There was such a connection between us." Dekulin nodded. Charlotte smirked, the edges of her lips curving upward. "The same goes for you. People are gossiping these days about the difficult exam questions that you gave out." "That's half right. It was praised, not gossiped about." "What?" "I made 40 million elnies out of it." Her eyes widened with envy. He continued in a calm tone. "Are you going to return to the Riok kingdom with the princess now? Or the principality of Urin?" At that moment, her forehead scrunched. "Are you mocking the princess's circumstances?" She answered with her teeth clenched. "We haven't met in a long time, and today is supposed to be spent grieving, so it would be best if you avoid uttering such harsh words. Take this." He took a small bead, a crystal marble that allowed communication, from his pocket, but Charlotte didn't take it. "What is it?" "A line that you can speak to your siblings with." "What?" She was suspicious of it, of course. He looked down at her indifferently. "Charlotte, how close were we?" "We weren't close enough for you to call me by my name at the very least. I also have animosity towards Riok." Those were the only words Killeen said, knowing full well that she wouldn't believe him if he were to tell her he had seen the future and that he had known her through a monitor. In the first place, in the game's settings, Riak wasn't a great country. On the contrary, it was beyond help. It's just a matter of time before they screw themselves over. Get lost. Killeen's eyebrows furrowed as he dropped the crystal ball carelessly. Do you still have time to be picky about people? Or, at the very least, do you really have the luxury to nitpick about people who'll be protecting your lord? The bead rolled over the ground. Well, proceed as you please, then. Killeen passed Charlotte. The princess's knight didn't even look at his back. Regardless, he walked more confidently than anyone else in the world before stopping abruptly, his eyes looking at it, the crystal ball rolling on the ground. Asterisk, that was how I met Charlotte. There was a way to save her whether or not she used the crystal ball, but the opportunity would present itself only after the enthronement anyway. Hence, right now, I had to focus on a far more pressing matter. Who? Alan, who was next to me in the Isle of Wizards' Wealth's waiting room for lecturers, took deep and nervous breaths. His behavior dumbfounded me. Alan wouldn't be the one giving the lecture. Why are you nervous? What? I'm sorry, knock. The door opened. A wizard wearing a robe entered the room and addressed me. Please finalize your preparations for your lecture, Professor Killeen. Okay. I fixed my clothes and got up from my seat. At the Medjyson's second floor, I stood in front of the lecture room's door as instructed by the wizard who fetched me. I read the plate that was attached to it. Monarch Killeen. Lecture on understanding pure elemental magic. Test paper included. I'll be waiting in the back. If there's a problem, feel free to call me at any time. Alan stuttered, his face reddening even further. I replied with a nod and opened the door. Stepping up to the podium, I looked at every face that attended my lecture. Strangely, there were a lot of familiar faces. I saw Professor Relin and the other professors, as well as Sylvia and her fellow debutantes. There were a lot of people from the tower, but the person who caught my eye the most was the one staring intently at me while laughing ominously for reasons I couldn't even begin to guess. The chairman. I got on the platform without even looking at her. Nice to meet you. Chapter 40. Nice to meet you. The audience grew silent. My name is Killeen, the head professor of the Imperial University Tower and a monarch-cranked wizard. As always, I started my lectures with an introduction. My lecture will last exactly 2 hours, through which I will be discussing its main focal point, the pure elemental magic test that was auctioned last week. I had already prepared the contents and flow of the lecture a week ago. The problem was, there was a good chance that the lecture wouldn't go my way as soon as I started. Kekek, the chairman's laugh, irritated me. First, let me give you a brief description of pure elements before we look at the questions. I was planning on holding the lecture in the form of problem explanations, but I first outlined what I said in my previous class at the tower. I proceeded to give out a short briefing using pure elements such as scorched fire, thundercloud, and will-o'-the-wisp. However, these pure elements have no purpose. They only gain magic affiliation according to the aim of the wizard that implements the element. You have to be aware of that. Most people would have their brains twisting upon thinking about pure elements and magic affiliation together. Simply put, it was like drawing 2 images with both hands simultaneously. Drawing one at a time was far more efficient. Let's put aside numbers 1 to 5 for now and take a look at question number 6 first. The aforementioned problem came up in the air. It embodied the magic bitter cold fog in which 3 pure elements were combined in perfect harmony. But the core of my lecture was numbers 7 and 8, so I only explained the gists adequately and moved on, or at least tried to. I have a question. Someone raised their hand. As I had expected, it was the chairman. Question? She jumped up and screamed like a nightingale, making her impossible to ignore. I paused for a moment and looked at her. Go ahead. Yes, the head professor emphasized the distinction between pure elements and magic affiliation. The chairman radiated mana and drew a magic circle in the air. What should we do if we want to affiliate the magic in number 6 with the best destructive magic compatible with it? I looked at the chairman for a while using understanding. 3 seconds was enough. I added a core circuit to his magic, a straight line composed of 28 strokes to form explosion. That will freeze and injure the enemy at the same time. Oh, I see, that's right. Oh, thanks. The chairman blinked as she collected her mana and sat down. Now let's look at question number 7. I made question number 7 hover in the air. Artificial star mobilized water, wind, earth, and fire elements. While I was explaining it, the chairman rose again. Professor, I have a question. As you said, there are 2 core circuits in number 7. However, wouldn't that many core circuits or more twist the magic itself? I think. The chairman released mana and drew question number 7. Artificial star had the highest number of magic combinations, but her version took a different form from my question. It would be easier to set up only 1 core circuit just like this. Why risk setting up 2 core circuits and having the magic go haywire? The chairman asked, perhaps already knowing the answer to it. I looked vacantly at her for a moment while she grinned. I nodded. That's a good question. I drew a copy of the chairman's magic. But an artificial star like yours, which only has 1 core circuit, will cause extreme mana consumption. The chairman replied as if she had been waiting. But wouldn't we consume more mana if we use 2 core circuits? That's basic and common knowledge. Why would you rather use 2 if you can use 1? Isn't that just wasteful? The other wizard's expressions told me that they agreed with her. Those were the chairman's words, after all. I refuted her argument in a calm and orderly manner. Yes, that is generally true, but not unconditionally so. It depends on the characteristic of the magic. Artificial star-S core circuits aren't only for the user's mana, but also for taking care of its energy. The chairman's expression hardened slightly. The artificial star in number 7 has special properties. One of the 2 core circuits focuses on circulation and the other on cohesion. Through them, its 4 pure elements will circulate and cohere inside the magic and release energy by themselves, allowing the caster to hold it for a longer duration while using less mana. After a brief pause, I continued. In that regard, the technique that the chairman showed isn't a star. It is no different to a chunk of mana meant to drain the caster empty. The chairman kept her mouth shut. There was already a shadow on her grinning face. But I looked at the clock. The appointed time was 120 minutes, and 110 minutes had already passed. I've used up too much time answering questions. I will no longer do any explanation on question number 8. Everyone looked at the chairman, who then pouted without saying anything. I'll take a few more questions and wrap it up. At that moment, somewhere within the room, a cold voice rang. Did you think about question number 8 yourself? It was a blatant suspicion. Frowning, I looked over to where it was coming from and found a robed wizard staring at me. Please introduce yourself. I'm Luina. Her name sounded familiar. I thought I knew who she was. Please be more specific with your question. It's as I said. Was question number 8 really your idea? Did you really write it yourself? I'm curious about that. Luina was a wizard who gave quests that opposed Dekilleen. I wasn't certain, but he might have banished her from the tower and expelled her to the kingdom. She was a named character overflowing with hatred for him. Huh, no way. Are you saying someone else wrote the test questions for Professor Dekilleen? A ghostwriter. The chairman jumped up and shouted. Murmurs soon filled the lecture room. Luina laughed as the chairman continued talking. There's no way. Professor Dekilleen isn't like that. It would have been better if he just kept his mouth shut. The wizards didn't say anything, but their eyes told me what they were thinking. Some seemed suspicious of me, some looked like they sympathized with me, and the rest just looked curious. I stood still and pondered about it. A good idea came to mind soon enough. Professor Dekilleen? I shook my head and laughed lowly at the chairman's words. It's common to be inspired by things that are not your own. The sounds of gasps echoed, however. I emitted mana, the lines of which drew a technique in the air. This is entirely mine. I recalled a landscape with my eyes closed and turned it into a technique, arranging the correct pure elements to depict it as if painting on a canvas. Just like that, the magical design that I envisioned emanated in the air using mana as its medium. Understanding allowed me to reproduce what I had learned and deciphered before using much less mana. I consumed over 50,000 in writing number 8, but now 3,000 was enough to recall the same magic. The wizards in the auditorium looked at the elaborately drawn picture that showcased 11 spells perfectly connected and intertwined with each other. Because I made it on the spot, the answer to this equation is completely different from number 8. Consider finding its answer as your homework. I then looked at Luina. Does this answer your question, Professor Luina? No, I looked at where Luina was, but she was nowhere to be found. I smirked, then sneered. I'll be ending my lecture here. Standing by the table, I organized my materials, straightened my clothes, and looked at the chairman. She looked bitter for some reason. Before long, some young wizards in the front seat approached me. It was uncommon for people to ask for an autograph from a wizard. Asterisk event quest completed. Mana plus 30 after my lecture, I returned to my mansion, where I found another car parked in the parking lot. It was Uriel's. When I entered the main building, Uriel was eating in the dining room, which wasn't surprising at all. While cutting through her steak, she raised a question. I heard you gave a lecture at the floating island. I nodded. Well, what happened? The wizards there must be on a different level from the tower chicks. There's nothing to worry about. Oh, come on, you always say that. Do you want me to be worried? Unfortunately, I'm not. As I sat in front of her, my attendants rushed in to prepare food. Uriel seemed flustered by the fact that we were now sharing the same table, but she quickly regained her composure. I heard you made 40 million Elnis. That's right. Let me know if you need financial support. I'll be sure to lend you some. Then, wait, lend? Yeah, what do you mean, lend? Give me half of it. I cut my meat without saying a word. As always, the level of cooking here was absolutely perfect. Well, the ingredients my chef used were top quality, and his salary was also very generous compared to other mansions. Just give me 10 million Elnis also here. The debutantes at the tower want to have their MT at Haidcane. Uriel pulled a document out of her handbag. Imperial University Tower Magic Department MT program, Haidcane, the capital of the Eucline estate. I also planned on visiting it someday. It had both a local wizard tower and a local knight order. Moreover, not only was its climate perfect, but it was also situated right next to the system. It was modeled after LA in the States and was one of the best places to live in. What do you think, Uriel? Well, I'm fine with it. Not all of the debutantes will stay in the university tower for thousands of years anyway, and they might join our tower if they like the city. She was glancing at me while proudly saying those words. I nodded. Okay. Gatilda Uriel returned the document in her handbag and picked up the knife again. Closely observing Uriel, I spoke up. When using a knife, I won't eat here. It was almost an instinctive response. Uriel ran away to her room with her plate, and I went to the library after finishing my meal. As soon as I sat on my desk, I took out the certificate of the tower's sponsorship, the subject of which was Eferen Luna. The test this time was my original work, but Eferen's father definitely gave me the inspiration for it. Drawing with elements. That idea was entirely his. Therefore, it was only right that a fraction of the 40 million Elnis I earned from it would be used to sponsor Eferen and the Luna family. Luna of Juhal? According to the information I had about the Luna family, they had a tragic history. Their family was still surviving, but their old mansion had been auctioned off 13 years ago, and now only Eferen and her grandparents were its members. I also wrote a letter to their family enclosed with 100,000 Elnis. Asterisk, my outfit today was dark blue. My cane, of course, neatly adjusted its color accordingly. Are you ready? Uriel asked. Looking at her, I stretched my hand out to her, startling her and causing her to take a step back. What? Why, stand still. As my hand got closer, she closed her eyes tightly. I then got rid of the wrinkles on her collar and sleeves. As a precaution, I also removed the dust on her clothes using psychokinesis. Now all tidied up, she expressed her dissatisfaction. That's a real disease. Follow me. I went outside. Roy was waiting in the parking, wearing a perfect fit for the clear blue skies of the summer. Soon enough, I got into the car with Uriel. The enthronement would take place today at the Jifreen Square in the system. Uriel, take this. I handed the sealed document to her. She frowned. What is this again? This is my prediction-obtained inclination of the next emperor. It was a document that summarized the important events that I was aware of, including which ones we could benefit from and how we could lower the difficulty of the quests. Are you a prophet? Just take it. Phew. Shaking her head as if finding it pathetic, she took the document. No more mind games? Prophecies were only funny at first. My lord, I don't think we'll be able to get any further than this. An uncouth crowd was blocking the road. We got out of the car. The Ukline family is this way. An imperial knight who was standing by around the area guided us to a separate passageway. As we did, I saw the square where the enthronement would soon take place. A long and wide carpet was in the middle of it, leading to a high altar. The crowd stood at its flanks, making sure to leave the carpet itself empty and unblocked. At the top of the platform, the emperor's throne awaited its next owner. This is it. The seats for the Ukline family were close to the throne. Not far away were some royals, including Maho, Ihelm, Glython, Sylvia, Essasil, Baton, Ragan, etc. Many named characters could be seen as well. I looked at one of them in particular, Julie. Feeling my gaze, she accepted it with a bow. She looked quite tired, the dark circles around her eyes being too deep. I wanted to approach her, but I couldn't exchange greetings with anyone recklessly. Duong. Drums rang, followed by trumpets and traditional music, which marked the beginning of the emperor's enthronement. Not far away, an imperial carriage appeared, and the cheers of the citizens shook heaven and earth. It stopped before the grand and fancy carpet, signaling the cheers and music to slowly fade as well. The carriage door opened from within, and finely stretched legs touched the ground not long after. Sophian Ikator August von Yigas Jifreen. She had languidly sunken eyes, long flaming red hair, and the sharp features of the previous emperor. She was to become the new ruler of the empire. Sophian walked majestically on the emperor's road, with each of her steps commanding the people in the square to kneel and bow their heads. Before long, Sophian had climbed up the platform. Slowly, she drew nearer to her throne. Beside it was the late emperor's empress, her mother, waiting for her ascent. As Sophian knelt in front of the throne, the empress held back her tears and placed a golden crown on Sophian's head. Duong, Duong, Duong. The drums rang one after another. Now sitting on her throne, Sophian had become the emperor. Overlooking all of her people and now carrying the noblest title to ever exist, Sophian glanced at the world. She looked tired for some reason. I looked at the emperor. I knew the reason behind her fatigue. I knew her origins, her life, after all. She was. The emperor shifted her gaze towards me, and the moment our eyes met, I bowed my head immediately. However, I could still feel her staring at me.